Hello, I hope you're enjoying this free episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And you know, it's made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. And now, through the month of September, we are offering new patrons, all new patrons who sign up for the first lieutenant level, we're offering you 25% off an annual membership. It's got to be annual, and you get 25% off. So go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg and sign up for the annual membership and use promo code 1LT25. That's like first lieutenant 25% off, you know. Use 1LT25 at checkout. Don't delay. The offer expires September 30th at 11:59. So that's once again Addressing Gettysburg's Patreon at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, or you can just scan this QR code, 1LT25.
Thinking of Charlie's
live
down.
Damn it, I did it again.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And today we are doing the other side of a topic that we did back in, what was that? I think April with our guest. We focused solely on the Confederate advance during Pickett's charge. And we decided, there's another side to that coin, and that's the Union defense. And so that's what we're talking about today. Our guest, once again, is the great James Hessler from various books that you've read, the Battle of Gettysburg podcast, License Guiding. What else? What don't you do?
Podcasting.
I said that.
Oh, did you
what
say
else?
that? I guess I
You were clapping.
Yeah,
you were clapping for yourself.
For myself.
You couldn't hear.
I'm clapping for all of you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, there you go. There it is. And and so Jim, we're going to get into that in just a moment, but a couple of things that I need to address first. We have to thank our listener, Bob Passamenti, who once again has stuffed us with food from the Dobbin House. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
A real hero.
Also, I believe a supporter of both shows in the back there is Elaine McLaughlin, and she brought delicious cookies from Gettysburg Baking Company. No, sorry. Okay. It's Gettysburg Cookie Company.
Yes.
God, sorry.
There's a nice promo. You got the company wrong.
Well, they're not paying, you know. And what else? Oh, okay. So now that's it. Now there's a couple of things, though, I have to remind you all. Super chats of $10 or more get read on the air. Mikey B will read them out to us. And also, if you don't want to contribute to our coffers, that's fine. That's fine. It's your money. You do with it what you will. But you can call in for free at 717-420-1978. I wrote down my actual number on the paper, and I almost read it out loud.
So if people want to call that at home, that number is
1-900-HOT-DUDE,
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. All right, listen. We got to get serious here. We have a contest. Mikey B has candles to give away from Gettysburg Candles, and they're delicious in their scent. And today's question, you're going to put this in the comment section. Mike will tally up the names. They are names for this one. And then after the break, we will announce the winner. The names will be put into a randomizer. Or actually, no, not in this case. If you get it right.
Whoever gets it right.
Closest without going over?
Closest without going over. And another time we've thought about this question and thought deeply about it, we use the analytical system that we use to come up with it. And tonight's question is, at the age of 13, what was Jim Hessler's cat's name?
Wow. Wow.
All right.
What was Jim Hessler's cat's name?
So bring out your primary sources.
Yep.
Dig
He's
through your
mentioned
books.
this many times on the Battle of
Always.
Gettysburg podcast.
I mentioned it on every battlefield tour, at least.
Every battlefield tour he
At
goes
least
on.
once.
It's something he still carries deep in his heart, and it weighs on his heart. And so he
It really
always,
does,
yeah,
actually.
it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make your guess.
Yeah,
and drop
apparently
that in
there
the
is
chat.
a sad story that goes along with this, which he'll tell us in the end when we get to the name.
Let's just say chart.
Oh, yeah. All right, that's okay. You had a dog. You had a dog.
Yeah, we had the.
So
let's
what's
just
the
say
dog's
crossing
name?
to the Rainbow Bridge was not happy. Yeah, I did just blow that.
You did blow it?
No, maybe
No,
people
because
didn't pick
people
up on
could
it.
well, but someone did.
Aren't you on a delay or something? Can't you just beep it?
Yeah,
I heard you like beep.
No.
All right.
What's the name of your podcast?
Waiting. Say it. Battle of Gettysburg podcast.
It's all right. You know what? Make him feel better. Tell him about the panini. Have you ever told? Has he told you about the panini incident before?
I don't think so.
Oh my God.
Tell him.
Do you want me to embarrass you like that?
No.
Mikey.
First of all, it's us.
Well, but you were the one with his pants down. All right, we'll talk about that later. People want to know about Pickett's charge.
They want to get right to the history.
Okay,
Right?
We'll tell him about the Panini incident
Yeah.
later. The history, yes. People do not like us showing our personalities. They
feeling.
just want the information.
Get right to it.
Yeah.
Be serious. Stop clowning around.
Yep.
We get the same thing.
It was at 4 minutes and 35 seconds when they finally got to the history. So here we go. We're getting to the history. Pickett's charge. Of course, you guys know that Jim has a book, but in case you didn't, here's Jim's book that he did with Wayne Motts, Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg, a guide to the most famous attack in American history. Really nice maps in here,
I
too.
love that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maps by Steve Stanley of the American Battlefield Trust.
Maps and just graphics in general. Very nice book, nice pages, super handy. It's like a walking tour in some cases.
Which at the time was the idea.
Yeah.
You know,
Good. So it's
get out of
it's
the
remained.
car.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Everything. Okay, so Pickett's charge. Now,
Yeah.
we did the Confederates. You can go back and watch that if you care. I think it's episode 122. But today we're talking about the Union defense of Pickett's charge. One thing I have to say, Jim.
Yes.
I was reading up on it last night, brushing up, and it's as it gets closer to the line, and then the lines intertwine. It's chaos. It turns into chaos. But looking at like maps of it, the Union defense looks a little thin. Now I know they have a good position. They've
Yeah.
got artillery. They've got reserves, but it looks a little thin. There was one point, and this is later on in the fight, but there's one point where the 69th PA is just hanging out there. No one on their immediate left or their immediate right, and what's left of a brigade, like basically a mob of Confederates coming at them.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get into this in a little more detail because it is chaotic towards the end there, which is exciting about it.
It is. I think we should be careful, obviously, when we rely too heavily on maps and books.
Yes.
At the end of the day, a map representing a regiment is a little block on a page, and it's not necessarily representing 300 or 400 guys or that sort of thing. But your point is well taken, Matt. I mean, one of the reasons why Armistead and his guys exploited that part of the stone wall was because at that moment of time, at that moment when they arrived at that point, the 71st had fallen back from the 69th Pennsylvania's right, and to your point, the 69th was kind of twisting in the wind.
It's out there. Yeah.
Now, there were a lot of guys on their left, so I might question
But there's
that.
a gap though between them,
Maybe.
isn't there?
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. But
And some of it too is the position they're in physically, the way the shape of the wall is in the defensive position. It's kind of its own little space out in front.
yeah,
Yeah,
one of the things I hope we get into tonight is sort of the unsung hero status of Harrow and Hull's brigades.
Yes.
Who would have been to Webb's left, the 69th Pennsylvania's
Yeah.
left. So yeah, they're there. Again, shape, are they right on next to each other? I don't know. Who
No,
knows?
but yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem with maps is that we want to picture them all always just standing in a line.
Exactly.
Right? And they're not. They have a position, and when they don't have anything to do, they're not fighting. They're not just standing there shoulder to shoulder.
Exactly.
Right? They're chilling. And they're probably in little clusters or whatever, and then something happens and they go to the line.
And remember, by that point in the attack, you had the cannonade,
Yeah.
which had created disorder and confusion in amongst a number of these regiments. So whatever was going on based on somebody who's taking a hit from artillery fire or whatever the case might be, you have factors like that at play as well.
Yeah. So go ahead, start us off on the defense, wherever you want to begin.
Well, start us off. I think last time I was here, we had this 3-hour epic marathon.
We didn't even get to this side.
Yeah, that was it. We ended up, you guys ended up marketing it as sort of the rebels' point of view or whatever you did. Yeah. And really that wasn't the intent. The intent was to try to cover all of it. But it kind of speaks to a problem I think we have when we interpret.
What, you and I have?
The problems we have.
Right.
But
a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of them. But the problems that we as a Gettysburg society have.
Yes.
When we get on the field.
There's a lot of those too.
We walk Pickett's charge. We spend so much time talking about really Southern valor, Armistead, Kemper, Garnett, or that sort of thing. And really that the Union defense is so often overlooked. So last time we did this 3-hour marathon, I came home from the studio exhausted, yet feeling empty inside.
Yes.
Because we
didn't tell the whole story.
Yeah, you want to remember the names like Sherrill and Messick and O'Kane and Woodruff and yes, Cushing, but these guys who really do spend the day defending and in some cases losing their lives.
Yeah.
It's a static defense in a lot of parts, but there's a lot of moving pieces too. Let's talk about what happens on the flanks with Stannard in the 8th Ohio, and I know we've gotten a lot of questions about that from the listeners. And the artillery piece, I think for me, I've always found the planning aspects, whether it's attack or defense, I've always found the planning aspects of Pickett's charge interesting, and it might be a good place to start.
Well, I was going to say, let's start, because that's what we did with Pickett. We started with the planning on the Confederate side. Go ahead. What's the plan on the Union side?
Well, think about it. If it really starts with that, are we still allowed to use the word Council of War for Meade on July 2nd?
Sure.
It starts with that council. That was sarcasm, but we're kind of in this era of rejuvenating George Meade, and some people don't like Council of War.
What they don't? What do they like?
The meeting, the team meeting, the staff meeting, all of that stuff.
Is it because they don't like the specific phrase if it's a
Council of War implying some negative undertones of that, but we're getting a field. It was just a sarcastic quip on my part.
It went over really well.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, folks, you should see the puzzled look on Mikey B's face during that reference.
I wasn't confused.
But it is. It sort of has some negative connotations, but the point being, the real point we're going to make is if you really want to start the planning exercise there, because the night of July 2nd, we all know how that meeting plays out. Meade and his subordinates get together and they vote to stay and fight it out. But at the same time, Meade had also said before that meeting, I need to get the condition of my army before I'm going to determine if my operations will be offensive or defensive. So one of the things they do during that meeting, besides voting to stay, is they get the condition of the army. And the army condition comes in at something like 58,000 guys. So you've got a significant reduction. As they're leaving the meeting, there's this famous quote that John Gibbon attributes to Meade, along the lines of Meade supposedly comes up to Gibbon and says, if they attack tomorrow, it will be on your front. Gibbon says, why do you say that? Meade allegedly says, because they have tried my flanks and they have failed. And that's sort of, a lot of people now have this, oh my God, George Meade has predicted the attack on the center. But if you really look at the messaging Meade is doing to Henry Halleck that night, and then the movements Meade makes during the morning hours of July 3rd, I think Meade is still really concerned, rightly so, but Meade is still really concerned about this idea that Lee might get in around his flank and rear and cut him off to the Taneytown Road and cut him off to the Baltimore Pike. So I think the whole idea of Meade predicting an attack on his center might be apocryphal. Again, we kind of debate, did it really happen? Did it not really happen? But I think the evidence is Meade is really now planning and strengthening his flanks for another day. And that's kind of where the planning starts.
I just want to go back to something that you said, that, they assessed the army and put it at about 58,000 men. And that is, I'm assuming, effectives, right?
Right, exactly. Who's still in condition.
Yeah. That to me, it kind of like hit me because you always think the Union Army's whatever 85, 95,000, and the Confederate Army's 75,000, and you forget that as the battle goes on. It's easy to forget, I should say. I'm sure other people are smarter than I. They remember these things. But, you know, as the battle goes on, those numbers are dwindling.
Yeah.
And so now, you know, they're covering the same amount of ground that they were covering the day before, but with, 20,000 or so less men? Fewer men?
Yep. And what's interesting about what you're talking about, Meade, worried about center of the flanks, where is he putting his fresh brigades? He's putting the 6th Corps on the flanks.
That's exactly it.
On both flanks.
That's exactly it.
So,
and that's the point is, so why is this significant? Well, you know, if you're like us and you want to get into the weeds, it kind of shows where are Meade's point of concerns. Cavalry. So as you get into the morning of July 3rd, where does the cavalry go? Pleasanton's cavalry is pulled back from the Hanover Road area toward the Baltimore Pike. Right flank. Kilpatrick's cavalry is sent over opposite the left flank. Now, the Kilpatrick move is more of an offensive thing, but again, you're moving the cavalry onto the flanks, and then, yes, the 6th Corps comes in. We know some of Neal's guys end up over at Wolf's Hill, the extreme right flank. Some of Shaler's guys end up over at Culp's Hill, helping Slocum. So, and then you're going to have Wright and Howe and some of their brigades in the area today opposite the behind the Union left that we know is Wright and Howe Avenue. So it's clearly where the attention and the focus is. 6th Corps more or less on the flanks.
Yeah, and the guys that are in the center are people that had their nose bloodied.
Yes.
In the 2 days prior. 1st Corps, 2nd Corps,
and 3rd Corps.
And the 3rd Corps, right? Yeah, and so that's to me stronger evidence that Meade is expecting more on the flanks than in the center.
That's exactly it. So you put all this together, and I think the body of evidence tells me, at least, regardless of whatever trying to pep talk he was trying to give John Gibbon, I mean, the body of evidence tells me that Meade is preparing and planning again for movement on his flanks.
Yeah.
And, you know, fair to the point, that's what Lee was going to do. So if you want to say Meade is predicting Lee's movements on July 3rd, Lee's original intent, remember, for July 3rd was to renew the attack against the flanks. So Meade is not wrong in terms of what he's doing. But for a lot of these things that don't come out, Ewell gets engaged at Culp's Hill before Longstreet is ready to move against the left. The flank attacks don't happen. So we talked about this in part 1.
Yeah.
This idea then that Lee's attack against the Union center is really an alternate plan. Again, I use the term plan B. Some people don't like that, but it's just a modern terminology that I use as an alternate. But then what is Meade doing during that? Really, what do? You strengthen the people that the best you can who got the bloody nose. You still have the 2nd Corps defending the Meade of Cemetery Ridge, but they're more or less, with the exception maybe of Willard's brigade, they're more or less in the same positions that they were yesterday on July 2nd. And then, as we've said, especially to the left of the 2nd Corps, you've got a lot of these guys who have a bloody nose. The 3rd Corps, the 1st Corps. Over on the right of the 2nd Corps, you have a little bit of the 11th Corps. So these are not necessarily guys who are expected to do a lot.
I kind of feel like if I'm worried about my center, I'm not putting the guys who were beaten up pretty badly in this to hold the center.
I've never thought about it at this level before, but also he has the luxury of putting those units on the flank because of his lines. It's much easier if the center is the point of attention. You can draw them from the flanks quite easily.
Yeah.
He did it from Culp's Hill to the left. He can move troops. It's a lot easier to do that than to strengthen the center and try and save a collapsed flank.
Yeah. Well, and that's so now as we move from the morning to the afternoon, think about that. Once the fighting at Culp's Hill is over, there's some messages that go back and forth between Slocum and Meade, where Slocum basically says, hey, you know those 6th Corps guys that you gave me this morning? I don't need them anymore. And Meade has Butterfield basically say, okay, great, send them back. The term they use is the left center. So it's not, the 6th Corps, some of the 6th Corps comes back, what I'll call into the zone of Cemetery Ridge. It's not in that area, though, that we think of, as you guys think of, with the defense of Pickett's charge, but they get moved to the left center. So they're kind of in that area.
Probably
north,
Town Road?
Well, kind of in that area, in a lot of cases, north of Little Round Top, generally kind of in the area where the Sedgwick statue is today, north of Little Round Top and north of the Wheatfield Road. So they come back. They're more now as we get into the afternoon in the left center, but it's still really the Second Corps that's, Gibbon's division specifically, and Hayes's division that's obviously going to take the brunt of this attack.
Okay. So then.
Yeah.
Continue.
So then
you moved into the afternoon.
So then we're in the afternoon and it's hot. We're having our little rooster stew lunch outside of Meade's headquarters. By the way, not to belabor the point, but what does Frank Haskell recall while they're eating their rooster stew? What does Frank Haskell say? Frank Haskell says General Meade was still concerned about an attack against his left, but said he was ready for the enemy. Hancock, according to Haskell, Hancock says, no, I think they're going to attack my front. And of course, Gibbon's at the lunch too, and they're all kind of eating and bantering about it. So what happens? We're getting into midday. Meade gets up and he leaves the meeting. He goes and does a little inspection of his line, ends up around Little Round Top. Henry Hunt, meanwhile, is also then placing and putting the artillery into position. And I guess if we're trying to say, okay, what is the morning planning that is really relevant to the defense of the charge, it's probably Hunt and the artillery.
So Hancock says, no, I think it's going to be on my front and everything. Now, is this because I know how it ends? Or, I just feel like Hancock would be smart enough to look out across that field and have enough respect for his foe to not think that they would be so foolish as to come across that field. You know what I'm saying? And is that just because I already know that it
Well, it could be. I thought maybe we were going to have a movie reference here, like he sees Armistead across the field and starts crying or something like that.
No. No,
But what do they see? What do they see when they start talking about looking across the field? Because meanwhile, while they've been resting and eating their rooster stew, the Confederate artillery has been setting up. And some of them say, particularly from an observation point like Little Round Top, we could see the Confederate batteries starting to come in position in front of Seminary Ridge. We can see those batteries, and it became obvious as the morning progressed that there was going to be some sort of enemy movement, again, what I'm going to call the left center.
So on July 2nd, from Little Round Top, or the post they had, was it on Jack's Mountain?
Yeah.
They had a pretty good idea of the movement of the Confederates moving
From
around
Jack's
to
Mountain?
that. Yes, what the whole signal corps, the whole community, the whole aspect of being able to see what the Confederate army is doing. Did they know where Pickett's division was? Could they see from Little Round Top or anything south of that point where they could see? They were not where the rest of Longstreet's corps was on the flank.
Yeah. So, at a moment like this, I always defer to being a historian, not what makes sense or what we think they should see or that sort of thing. And the answer I give to a question like that is I can't think of anything in the historical record that says, oh, Pickett's division is over here. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I can't think of anything in the historical record off the top of my head that does that. Quick story. One time, Wayne and I were, when the book first came out, and Wayne and I did a lot of joint talks, we were at a roundtable talk, and a person we know, and I'm not going to say who it is, we would all recognize the name.
Mikey B.
Mikey B. threw a candle at us. And no. But another guy that we know and respect equally at Mike's level.
Which is to say, not respect.
The garbage man.
No, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
This is good. My father's here, and you're all
I'm
insulting
sorry.
me.
I'm sorry.
Ed, my agent, Ed, is here, so which we've got to talk about that. All right, can I finish?
Yes,
Sorry.
please do.
So, because I just want to, there's a historical context here. A guy that we knew kind of tried to pin Wayne and I down and say, look, the BMI had told everybody where everybody was in position, and I know I saw a map in the OR that showed the position everybody was in, and we kind of looked at each other and said, I just don't really know what blank is talking about. And we went home and we found the map in the OR. And of course, the map was something drafted after the fact.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to, again, be careful with that. So back to the question, is it possible that somebody's got eyes on battle flags and all that stuff? I just don't know of anything in the historical record that says that.
Well, but hold on now, because you mentioned BMI, that this guy mentions BMI.
Yeah.
Hasn't that been the story though, or did I mishear the story you were telling? Because I seem to remember hearing that the BMI had prisoners from every unit except for those in Pickett's division, and so they were able to deduce that Pickett wasn't up, and so Pickett was the only fresh division he had. Correct?
Yes, but where I thought we were going more with Mike's question is where are they on the field?
Where are they? Okay.
Where are they on the field?
So the guy mentioned BMI.
Well, the guy mentioned a map that was in the OR and said, this shows where, and we're like, well, and you come home and you go, wait a minute, that was, that was drafted 3 months later, sort of thing.
So you weren't saying that the BMI thing was a legend or who?
No.
That's real.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
So but back to the point, what the record does show, Hunt says it. I think Osborne says it. Maybe Meade even says it. But the record does show that by late morning, early afternoon, we can see the Confederate artillery. We can probably see where the infantry is massing, and we know something is probably afoot.
So, do you want to get right into the cannonade, or where do you want to go? Let's go into that.
Unless you guys...
No, I think I have all the questions.
So, since we're talking about Hunt placing artillery, they see the Confederates coming out. Is he reacting to that and adding batteries across from that, or does he already have a lot of those guns in place before that happened?
I think a lot of the guns are already in place before that. You think about McGilvery's line, which is a big piece of this.
Blob.
Yeah, big blob. McGilvery's line, I think they've already been setting up all morning is a holdover from yesterday. We have the battery up on Little Round Top. Hazlett's former battery that's now Rittenhouse, that's already there. Gibbs battery on the northern shelf and so on. So yeah, I think most of them are there. McGilvery does talk about on his line some batteries kind of moving in and out during the course of the morning. So there probably is some movement in terms of, okay, we did a head count, you were shot to hell yesterday, or you just don't have ammo, or whatever the case might be. But I don't think during this point, because we're literally right before the beginning of the cannonade, I don't think at this point Hunt is like, oh my God, bring in more guns. I think it's pretty much riding up and down the line, inspecting the lines. What kind of condition is everybody in? How much ammo do they have, and things of that nature.
Yeah. So they're also the batteries are popping at each other all day long. Right, it's like there's not a big fight going on, but isn't there
there's some morning skirmishing?
Yeah. With I was reading in their book about Cushing and earlier in the day and the Confederates blew up some of his ammo chests.
Yeah,
and they could hear them cheering across the field.
Yeah,
and that was when you watch the movie and how it's done dramatically, all the guns going off at once. My thought process always is, well, some of those are Napoleons. They have to be moved forward to reach the line.
Yeah.
Is the Union artillery just watching them and just being like, well, we're going to wait until they open fire. We're going to let them get set up.
Well, especially when you see how close some of them are.
Yeah.
Because they're in like a crescent moon shape. They're not in a straight line at the woods.
You're right. It's not that straight line along Seminary Ridge that a lot of people might think it is far from.
Right. So my thought process is I knowing how much ammunition they have as an army, that they would, I'd imagine it was contested with those guns coming out, or they had to do it relatively quickly, because I can't imagine the Union 3-inch ordnance in Paris.
So you're right, there are some accounts of skirmishing in the morning. You brought up the account from the book that we used of Cushing, some skirmishing up and around the north side of Cemetery Ridge, opposite the Bliss Farm, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I think probably when you get into areas where maybe you feel a little too close for comfort, or people are taking pot shots at each other, you're gonna have more skirmishing going on there.
I just want to, Tad, if you will, go to camera 6 here. Just to show people, it's kind of hard to see here. And if I can do day-night here. Okay, so it might be a little easier. Not much. But these bars here are Confederate batteries. And you can see they're not in a straight line here along the tree line. because a lot of them wouldn't be able to see
Right.
their targets.
Well, I want
So they got to come out where they can see. And so here's the peach orchard. This is the high ground. Remember, Sickles didn't like it.
Yes, Sickles.
Sickles wanted to get that, and he tried. But, here they are, and it's not very far from the Union line. I mean, definitely, obviously, within range of each other's guns.
Yeah.
So my question is, and maybe this is piggybacking on kind of on what Mike's saying, is when they're watching the Confederates get their guns online, why are they not blowing them off?
Well, remember there's an account from Alexander where he says during the overnight placing or early morning placing of the guns, he literally talks about when the sun came up and we had better daylight, we were so close to the Union positions that Alexander basically said, "Oh crap, we got to pull back. We got to go back and realign them."
Yeah.
So you've got some of that going on.
Okay. So there is
Yeah,
activity.
Yeah, there's definitely activity, but you guys know this. I mean, you're not just going to start wailing away at people without orders.
Right.
And again, with the risk of wasting what could be scarce ammunition. So there's the factors as well. And especially if you've got Henry Hunt in the zone. I mean, we know how Hunt, the old Army regular, feels about
Ammo
and quote unquote wasting ammo. I think if Hunt is riding up and down the line and he sees you exchanging useless pot shots with some battery on the other side of the road over there, a guy like Hunt is probably going to tell you or have his, some of his McGilvery type guys trained to say, "Hey, knock it off." Wait till the big picture. See what the enemy does and how that develops.
Mikey B.
No, we had a couple of super chats.
Oh, did we? Thank you, everybody.
Ken and Mike, thank you both for your donations there. Ken said for Jim and his fabulous book he just finished reading last week.
Thanks.
And Matt, if you could fire up the Dan Butterfield there from Matt Gillespie. He says, "Keep up the good work, Matt. Please give Jim and Mikey B a Dan Butterfield."
Dan, Butterfield.
Thank you.
All right. And that's all of them?
That's what we had.
All right. Very good. Thank you, everybody. So, okay. So the guns are online. It's afternoon. Big Bang Baby.
Big Bang Baby.
It's a crash, crash, crash.
Yeah. Let me... sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's good.
No, I was going to say, I was just kind of flipping through some things I had jotted down here. I found a passage from Hunt's report. I had just finished my inspection, and I was with Lieutenant Rittenhouse on the top of Little Round Top when the enemy opened at about 1 p.m. along his whole right, a furious cannonade against the left of our line.
Can you imagine from Little Round Top watching that?
Oh, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's got to be crazy.
It's got to be. And so Hunt, obviously now, is going to spend time continuing to ride down the line. I think Hunt spends a lot of the cannonade with McGilvery on McGilvery's side of the line. So as we said, McGilvery says in his report that he commanded something like 39 guns on July 3rd. Well, as I said earlier, they're not all in place at one time. So during the cannonade itself, there might be somewhere between 75 to 80 Union guns that reply. I always say, because, obviously we, being the types of people that we are, want to know the exact numbers.
Right.
And I always say, look, Henry Hunt in his writings estimated it. And if the commander of the artillery of the Army of the Potomac didn't know how many guns he had at play, then no one's going to know. Now, Paul Cooksey, a late great battlefield guide, came up with a number of 78 a number of years ago in a great Gettysburg magazine article. So again, so 75 to 80 guns play. A good chunk of those are on McGilvery's part of the line. Hunt is at McGilvery's part of the line for a good part of the cannonade. And he says on that part of the field, a lot of the Confederate shots are going harmlessly overhead. So I know we had some questions about planning versus circumstance. Like, I don't think anybody placed these guns saying, damnation, if we put the guns here, they're all going to go overhead. I think this is more just poor targeting on the Confederates' part. But, sometimes you got to be lucky to be good or good to be lucky. And I think in this case, the, McGilvery's in a good position to watch these suckers just fly overhead.
And are they being fired on from the peach orchard?
Yeah, I think kind of if you go back to your arc from the peach orchard, up around that Emmitsburg Road. And I'll say again, because I've been saying it for years, and I know I said it last time I'm here. The occupation of the Peach Orchard and the Emmitsburg Road for his artillery is one of the things that encourages Lee to launch this attack in the first place. Now, we know in hindsight he overestimates the value of that, but at least at this moment in time, July 3rd, he's thinking these forward positions for his artillery are going to kick some ass. And again, we know they don't.
Yeah. Okay. So they're farting. They're starting the cannonade, the bombardment, and so then that's interesting. The number that you put at 78 or 80,
75 to
cannon.
80.
I mean, that still sounds like a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like 80 cannon going off constantly for an hour or whatever it is.
125 to 40 on the other side.
Yeah.
That's a lot of firepower.
I remember like when I first started coming around, like the bus tour would have it at like 300, like ridiculous numbers. Like, I mean, it wasn't anything out of line with what I heard, older guides saying at the time.
It was
or the
Park
scholarship
Service at the time. Is
it
that what
was.
we're saying?
I don't know if it was the scholarship, but it was the story that we were being told at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see how that changes over time as people learn new information.
Yeah, Wayne's got a great saying. I mean, he's been however many years now. Wayne's been a guide here. Wayne says every year the number of people involved in Pickett's charge gets smaller. At some point it's going to be zero. Right? Well, there were no guns firing in the cannonade, but...
Yeah, we have an obsession with revising numbers, don't we?
Yeah.
But also, I kind of like that in a way, because it becomes even more, maybe like not so much of a mystery, but it's just even harder to imagine, because 15,000, which is the original number I remember being told.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
15,000. No 15,000 men could ever. Right. Okay. 15,000 going across that field. You're like, well, that sounds like, if you're going to, like, the very least you're going to need, right? But now it's like 12,500 something. What that 500 is going to do, I don't know. But 12,000, let's say. And next thing you know, we're going to, it's probably going to be about 6,000, 6,500 people
possible.
there.
If we also dig into the Union defense, I think we'd imagine, or we'd find there's even less people than previously thought as well.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with all this.
And some of that comes back to that initial question about the map. Hey, it looked like on a map, a regiment just hanging out by itself.
Right.
This line is probably not as... So I don't even remember what I was looking at, but I was doing something on Pickett's charge. I was looking something up, and some site characterized this as a defense in depth with multiple lines of infantry and artillery. I don't see that. I mean, certainly, in Webb's case, you have some regiments behind the other, and but I think there's more gaps here than we would appreciate or realize.
Something we've talked, or at least I talk about or mention a lot, and then we do too, is the fallacy of studying the battle by maps.
Oh,
I think
agree.
if you could go back in time, I think you'd be like, well, it's a lot less organized than I thought it would be here.
Oh yeah,
but it also
shocked.
makes more sense.
Well, you know, as a listener to the Battle of Gettysburg podcast,
big time,
that we
that was supposed to be my bleep.
I rail on our over reliance of maps all the time. I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I need a good visual like anybody, but just this constant sort of stop talking, give me a map to look at. All a map is a picture. It's an artistic representation with bodies being represented by a blue block or a red block. And as we said before, it's just a stationary moment in time. We're over relying on them way too much.
Yeah. We absolutely do. And I think like you said, it helps to have a visual, but you can't treat it as gospel. And that's the thing, is like they don't move. And when they do move, like we have on the animated map here, there's still lines on a page or on an image.
And something we mentioned before that I forgot to mention, this ties into the artillery. Of course, maps on a page in a book are flat and do not represent the topography. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I've seen a number of, I'm not even going to call them maps, I'm going to call them diagrams related to the artillery of Pickett's charge, that basically have, guns on this side of the page and then lines representing line fields of fire, lines going like
Oh, yeah,
over the
yeah.
page. Like the whole page is like, I'm getting animated here. The whole page is like scrambled with these lines going across. And of course, people look at that and go, well, it was suicidal. No wonder nobody could get across the field. Well, wait a minute. A lot of guys did get across the field.
Right.
And one of the reasons they did is because that field of fire that you've crisscrossed all over your map didn't actually exist on the field.
Right.
And we got to remember that.
And then go
it's
out
not
and see
flat.
what
Yeah.
a battery looks like firing projectiles, and then realize they recoil and have to get set every time anyway.
Right,
So it's
right.
not like they're, all right, we're going
Right.
to put this gun here,
Right.
and you've got this to cover.
Yeah. That's what I think makes the problem with maps is it I think arbitrarily forces our brains to picture everything neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Movies too, but but it's not neat. Like it's carnage. You know, how neat is that going to be?
Yep.
Everybody's blowing up around you, but dress those lines.
It takes out what I think the most important part of Civil War command is, and that's improvising.
Yes.
It's 20% planned and 80% you're just, it's not, we're facing this regiment as if it's a one-on-one.
Pickett's charge.
You don't even recognize that, like we're saying with Pickett's division.
Yeah.
They wouldn't say, oh, well, that's Pickett's division. It starts here and ends here. No, they just see a blob.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a concentration of men.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you're fighting, you're not like, okay, that's the regiment we're firing at. No, you're just shooting at the
at whatever
blob
the-
that's there.
Right.
And that improvisation factor that you just talked about, I think is a big part of the defense of Pickett's charge.
Well, I was going to say the Pickett's charge is a great action for seeing how that works on both sides.
Yes.
Because it's happening in both sides because people are going down like crazy.
Well, yeah. And the piece that I want to mention ties into improvisation and the cannonade. So we always talk about the overshots.
Yeah.
And of course, many of the overshots start ending up in and around Meade's headquarters at the Tawnytown Road. We know this. We know this story. But what happens? So Meade and his staff, first they relocate a couple hundred yards down the road. I think they describe it as relocating to a barn. And then that's still a hot spot. So they end up relocating down to Powers Hill. And so and I'm not saying this to disparage Meade, quite the opposite. For a good part of the charge, and by the way, we haven't done our disclaimer yet. We're calling it Pickett's charge, the Pickett, Pettigrew, Trimble charge.
Right,
But
right.
For a good part of the charge, or the afternoon, Meade is out of communication with the guys on the field. And so I really want to give credit to the guys on the field. Not only, yes, Hunt, yes, Hancock, but you see as you get into the meat of the fight, brigade commanders, regimental commanders, battery commanders having to make the decision on their own.
Yeah.
And if I bristle sometimes, particularly in the defense, I have friends, colleagues who will say stuff like, well, at this point, Meade throws in 5,000 reinforcements. No, words matter.
Yeah.
Meade throws in is a very specific term.
Yeah.
What you really want to say is all these regiments rush in, or Norman Hall, who I hope we talk about, rushes in. I really want to give credit to the guys on the field on this one. They are really the heroes of the defense of Pickett's charge, in my opinion.
No, I agree. So let's get into some of that there, okay? The cannonade is over. You want to just go through the cannonade, or do you want to talk about what's happening?
Well, we should probably talk about at least what ends it, because I know we had some questions about that.
They blew the whistle.
They blew the whistle, yeah. And then
That's it.
The timer
Kaput.
went off.
Well, the blue block on the map moved over here, and that was it.
Everybody stop.
But I think, right, Henry Hunt.
Yeah.
We probably do want to talk about
Yeah,
Hunt.
sure.
So, of course, as the cannonade goes on, and by all accounts, the Southerners intended for the cannonade to be short, hard, and sharp. They don't have ammunition for a protracted 60-minute, 90-minute type of thing. But Hunt and his boys have that unexpected moment where instead of running and retreating off the field, they shoot back. And that's what drags the cannonade out. But as it continues to drag out, let's say nobody really knows. Let's just say as you get into the 60 to 90 minute point of view, Hunt says he starts to realize that, okay, this is getting us nowhere. And yes, probably Hunt is counting up how much ammunition is being wasted. But Hunt says he starts riding the line and telling his guns to stop returning fire. Now, he says he gets all the way up to East Cemetery Hill, or maybe it'd be West Cemetery Hill, but he gets up to Cemetery Hill, and he has a conversation with Howard and Osborne being the 11th Corps artillery guy. Now, Osborne later said the decision to stop the cannonade was actually his idea. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You know, success always has many authors, right?
Right.
Like some of my books. But Osborne says the idea was his. Hunt says the idea is his. So now Hunt starts telling people to stop firing. He's riding down the line. Supposedly a message comes from Meade's headquarters that says, hey, stop firing. Hunt says, well, yeah, I've already started to do that. So they stop returning fire on the Union side. They stop shooting back. Of course, that's going to run into the conflict with Hancock if we want to talk about that. But in the big picture, you know, the point can be made that Hunt's decision to stop firing is what brings on Pickett's charge. Because again, Longstreet, Alexander kind of had to make this decision that we order the charge when the enemy's fire ceases. And if the enemy's fire doesn't cease, you could argue, would they have gotten to a point where they would have called it off? Again, it's all what if history. I'm not trying to go there. What I am trying to say is Hunt's decision to stop shooting has big implications.
Go ahead. And you mentioned it, so now you have to do it because somebody in the audience will want to know. The Hancock.
Yeah, it's great. You know, look, we all get into this for different reasons. I don't get so much into numbers, you know, how many guys over here, how many guys over there, sort of thing. I like the stories and the conflicts.
Yeah.
You know, the Custer conflicts, the Sickles conflicts. I like conflict. It's real.
Yes.
Right?
It's human.
It's human. These guys are not marble men. They're not statues. They're real people.
Yeah.
Like rival podcasters. They could be rivals within their own professions.
And they can have a traditional annual dinner.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Which, did we miss that this year?
Didn't we do that this year?
That's what I'm asking.
You see, folks, we have such a good time when we get together.
You can tell how much it means to both of them.
All I know is it's your turn to buy.
No, we went to the diner. We did go this year. We could do it again if you had that.
Yeah, we could do twice a year.
We should do twice.
Yeah,
folks.
Maybe once a quarter.
Folks, comment. Do you want to see Jim and Matt breaking bread at least once a quarter? Comment now.
Breaking bread or breaking bones? Bread. I like bread better. All right. So
Hancock and Hunt.
Yes.
So again,
say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, probably many of us know the basics of the story. You have kind of down in the area of Cemetery Ridge today, general area of where the Pennsylvania Monument is today. You sort of have the right end of Hunt's artillery reserves starting to encroach on the left end of the Second Corps batteries. It's somewhere in that general area. Point being, as you get into that zone, Hancock notices that the batteries from the artillery reserve, which would be McGilvery's line, Hancock notices those guys have stopped firing. Hancock comes into what would be Hunt's territory and basically starts telling these guys, and you can imagine Hancock is probably letting the air blue with profanity. Yeah. You know, why the blank blank? Kind of like when you beep me. Should we do a why the?
Yeah, why don't you imitate Hancock? Ready, go.
Why the f***?
Wow. Sorry, General. Yeah. We were ordered by General Hunt not to.
Exactly. Have that. Did you get my beeping? Because I really don't want to use the F-bomb on the air.
No, I got you.
You got it, okay.
And I didn't know you were actually going to use it.
Yeah,
so that was
he
good.
Came right out with.
Yeah, I'm glad I hit the right button. Could you imagine if he did it and I got... and he's like, effing F word.
Yeah.
Okay.
This should be a family show.
It should be.
I feel strongly about that. So anyway, Hancock is now why the heck are these guns not firing? Well, as you said, General Hunt has told them to stop. Most of us probably know the basics of the story. The problem is you have, first of all, authority. Who has authority on that part of the field? Mm-hmm. You have Second Corps batteries, which by all intents would fall under Hancock. You know, Hazard's artillery is part of the Second Corps, or the artillery reserve under Hunt. Now, Hancock, in his defense, would later say, look, first of all, Hunt, in his view, is basically a staff officer with no line authority. So in Hancock's view, Major General Hancock versus Brigadier General Hunt, there really isn't a debate here.
Sounds like Hancock.
Sounds like Hancock. But the other thing, too, which I got to agree with Hancock on, Hancock says, look, the left center of the line was under my control. Now, again, there's a little bit of uncertainty about this. By that part of the day, Slocum kind of thinks he's commanding a right wing. Hancock kind of thinks he's commanding a left wing. Meade says later, no, that wasn't accurate for either one of you guys, but both of these guys think they've got more on their plate than maybe they do. But Hancock says, look, if we lost that part of the line, I would have taken the blame for it, not staff, in his view, Staff Officer Hunt.
Yeah.
I can't argue with Hancock on that.
No.
So the line of authority is kind of clear.
Because even if McGilvery's brigade is under or in the sector that Hancock's in charge of, that's still another thing that puts him above Hunt, right? Hunt, Brigadier, as you point out. But also, let's say, okay, well, McGilvery is one of my reserve brigades.
Yeah.
And so he's under my command. It's like, yes, but you're in my sector and you're all under my command.
Yeah, kind of.
And I want you firing.
Right.
So any way you slice it, Winter Hancock.
You said
Well, not necessarily.
You said that Meade
Yeah.
said that there wasn't sector command. Did he say that after the battle? Or?
Well, in Slocum's case, it's a little more of a hot.
That's what I was going to ask. Because Slocum
dispute.
literally promoted people and moved things in
Yeah, and
Lockwood and the whole.
And Meade later says, why is Williams, for example, even at the Council of War?
Right.
I mean, in Hancock's case, it's a little more of, Frank Haskell says during the Rooster Lunch, hey, at this time, Hancock went back to Corps Command. Well, obviously, Hancock doesn't think he's just the Corps Command. Look, my point again is, I agree with Hancock from the point of view, if they lose that part of the line, you're not blaming the Chief of Artillery. You're probably blaming Hancock. Having said that, a lot of the artillery guys involved all kind of laughed later and said, oh yeah, some infantry officer was telling us to fight. And I think it's Phillips from Massachusetts who says, yeah, it shows you how little an artillery officer knows about, shows you how little an infantry officer knows about artillery. So I think from the expertise point of view, maybe Hancock is in a little bit over his head. What I think it really represents, and this goes back to doing leadership tours on the battlefield, what it really represents is when you have two top subordinates not on the same page, right? And maybe if Meade were in the zone, he could exert a clearer, this is what I want done.
Yeah.
But it's conflict. It's conflict.
Yeah. Where is Meade at this point?
Well, Meade at this time is, again, if he's not at Powers Hill, he's headed in that direction. Again, pretty much
away from the danger of the
overshots. Yeah.
All right. So, what else about the cannonade, and then we'll move on to the fighting.
One more thing, since you mentioned it, I think, of course, we always talk about the cannonade as really being useless and a spectacular fireworks show and the overshots and all of that stuff. One point that I often make and point out is when you look at the casualties incurred by the Second Corps batteries under Hancock, I mean, there's some pretty heavy casualties there. Cushing's battery, Brown's battery, Rorty's battery, Arnold. The cannonade is effective to a point in disrupting the Second Corps batteries in and around, what we would call today the Cops and the Angle. So it's not... And when you add in busting up Meade's communication, it's not totally ineffective. It just doesn't have the broad enough impact that Lee is going to need to get that infantry across the field. And so when we bring people out on the field today and they look across that mile of open ground and they say, what the hell was Lee thinking? How did he possibly think what Lee thought was busting up the Union artillery was going to be the way to get his men across the field? And that's the ultimate reason why the charge fails.
And the infantry didn't escape. I mean, the New Yorkers up on Ziegler's Grove, that are near Woodruff's guns, get the crap beat out of them.
Yeah.
Well, so you reminded me of some stuff here on page 213 in your book.
Yes.
Your book, Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg.
What's that book again?
Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg, written by Jim Hessler and Wayne Montz.
With maps by Steve Stanley.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, yes. Anyway, where was I? I was reading these to Tad before, and he actually threw up on the floor. This is Fugger. Sergeant Fugger?
Yeah.
Called it the most terrific cannonade I ever witnessed. The very earth shook beneath our feet. This is a popular quote. And the hills and works seemed to reel like a drunken man. I love that. Not only were the artillerists subject to exploding shot and shell, but the men were frequently hit by flying rocks as the Confederate projectiles struck nearby stone walls. Quote, men and horses were torn to pieces on all sides, remembered one soldier. Every few seconds, a shot or shell would strike right in among our guns, but we could not stop for anything. General Gibbon was observing one of Cushing's men when an enemy shell landed under an open ammunition box. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And this is a quote now from Gibbon, and the poor gunner went hopping to the rear on one leg, the shreds of the other dangling about as he went. Another shell crashed into a horse, disemboweling the animal and badly injuring the driver, Private Arsenal Griffin. What a great name. Arsenal. I got to tell Stephen Taft he's got to change his new baby's name to Arsenal. That's freaking awesome. He had been badly wounded previously in 1862 and vowed never to endure that type of pain again. Laying in agony with his abdomen shot away and entrails spilling on the ground, Griffin called out, "Goodbye, boys," put his revolver to his head, and shot himself.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not have been effective in the way that Lee wanted it to be, but it inflicted pain on the Union men who were in there. It wasn't all overshoots. I think that gets exaggerated.
I agree.
Because I don't know why, but I remember as a young person hearing that always gave me like a tingle. Like, in my head, in my like the back of my neck, I would, they're all overshooting. It's like, because it's going to fail. Mm-hmm. See, like when I was younger, that was why it failed, because why the charge failed, because the bombardment failed. But it's a lot more complicated than that as you read more about it. But on a bus tour as a little kid, wow. But no, they weren't all overshoots.
Nope.
And there were a lot of there's a lot of damage done during that cannonade.
There absolutely is, and I'm glad you read a kind of a graphic passage like that, because we've talked about this before. I do bristle a little bit when we treat Gettysburg like a playground.
Yes, me too.
Like my happy place. It's a playground,
It's my happy place. Yes.
Yeah. Well, all of the above.
Yeah.
Kind of like a parlor game. And I get it. We all pursue this as a hobby, as an avocation. Some people pursue it as a profession, whatever. But you got to remember, this is some graphic stuff, and that's why when I write, I try to include some of that stuff just to twist the knife a little bit and remind people that this is not, this is
you
not
and
your
I
happy
are
place.
of the same mind with that, and I love that you do that, because if you don't do that, if you gloss over that stuff, you're missing the entire point of studying this to begin with.
Exactly.
And okay. So gory details during the bombardment. Anything else?
No, I mean, I'll close with Hunt. Going back to this Hunt, Hancock, Second Corps sort of debate. Now, Hunt later wrote that he had counted on, and I'm reading from Hunt, he had counted on an artillery crossfire that would stop the enemy before they reached our lines. Except for a few shots here and there, this is Hunt talking, Hazard's Second Corps batteries were silent until the enemy came within canister range. In Hunt's view, they had unfortunately exhausted their long-range projectiles during the cannonade under the orders of their corps commander. Well, there you go. He's putting Hancock right under the bus there, and it was too late to replace them. This is still Hunt. Had my instructions been followed, as they were by McGilvery, I do not believe Pickett's division would have reached our line. Well, there you go. That, in Hunt's view, is the impact of the Hunt-Hancock debate. Second Corps batteries supposedly expend all of their long-range ammunition. That's going to be, in his view, one of the things that's going to allow the Second Corps front to be vulnerable when the infantry gets across the field.
717-420-1978 is the phone number if you want to call. I know we had another person in the queue. Oh, it looks like we had 3 other people in the queue, but some people got impatient. Except for the great 6 Questions Lentz. He is here, and he's got some questions. Mikey, how are you, and what is your question? Or questions?
Good evening. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here.
All right,
and
sir.
staying here on the cannonade a little bit. And going back, I'm glad that you read that passage, Matt, about the kind of horrific nature of what it would have been on the Union line. I think oftentimes when we look at Pickett's charge, we see it a lot from the Confederate side, and we think that the Union guys are just sitting up there waiting for them to get to their lines and repulse the attack. So, Jim, can you talk to what would have been the experience of those soldiers, especially the infantrymen who are along that stone wall? What would they have been experiencing? What do the sources tell us during this cannonade? Mind you, they can't shoot back because they've got rifles. So what are they going through?
Yeah. So good question, Mike, by the way.
That was like 12 questions.
Yeah, well, let me see if I got it all because you see I'm not wearing the headset. But
oh, you didn't hear it all.
No, I think I did. I think I got it. So the basic point, what was the experience of the Union infantry while these shot and shell is flying overhead and exploding? It's mixed. Matt read the passage of carnage. One of the reasons why Hancock wants that return fire vigorously met is because in his view that will improve the morale of his waiting infantry. So you have that factor as well. Some of the guys, I think it's some of Stannard's guys, talk about falling asleep. That after a while, I would assume the heat, the exhaustion, the experience, all of it probably just...
It's the adrenaline you build up and then dissipate.
Yeah, just comes together.
Yes.
Kind of just comes together to sort of dull the senses. And they talk about a lot of guys falling asleep in it. Again, I hate to make a movie reference, but what does Chamberlain do during the movie? He falls asleep. Now, of course, Chamberlain's not there in the real deal, but that's a real experience. Sure. Guys talk about doing that.
Go ahead.
Just with the other thing, too, the guys who are up and moving around, they do talk about loading multiple muskets because, yes, we have guys, who dead bodies lying around from yesterday's fighting, loading up, cleaning multiple muskets, waiting for them to, waiting for the enemy to come. Is it Hayes? Somebody, I want to say, drills his guys, runs them through the manual of arms and something just to distract them.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of experiences.
I had the joy of going on. I only had like an hour to spare, but I went on. A listener a couple of years ago invited me on a staff ride that he and his, I guess, unit were taking with Rob Abbott. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you're going to do a staff ride, you want to do it from a Marine colonel with battle experience, right? And so he's asking, and I was like, just hanging on every word. It's totally different, as you know, than a regular old battlefield tour.
Sometimes, yeah.
I mean, its purpose is different. It's not for the tourist. It's for a military person, right? So he's talking about adrenaline, and he says to the guys, he goes, and your adrenaline's up, and and you can do anything. You can lift a car. He goes, what happens when the adrenaline's done? And they're all like, you crash. And he's like, yeah, you crash. And he goes, but these guys, and I think he's talking about the Confederate pursuit of the Union troops in through the town. Yeah. He's like, those guys can't just crash. They got to keep going. Yeah. And now, but they got nothing left.
Reason number 500 why I don't like our over-reliance on maps. Yeah. Because, again, it seems so simple. Just move that block from the top of the page to the bottom of the page.
Removes the human element of everything.
I always say leadership tour or simple battlefield tour or anything in between. I always say the factors we can't recreate are fatigue, hunger, fear, why did Lee think this charge was going to work? Because we can't recreate the idea of inducing fear and panic into those blue blocks on the page. And these are all factors that exhaustion,
thirst.
So like you and Rob said, the adrenaline and everything that goes into
it. We did a whole show that focused on lack of sleep and how important that was. From command all the way down.
I know you probably constantly listen to our 161st anniversary episode where Fran Fiak talks about the medical things that go on, or the medical things, the physiological things that go on when the body is in a situation like making Pickett's charge or a battle in general. And I'll bleep because now you got me thinking about making it a family show. So I'll bleep the phrase I shit pants, right? Well, I always thought that was just a way to exaggerate how scared you were. But he says that is actually one of the functions of the body when you're scared in the fight or flight mode is to lighten the load and empty your bowels.
Birds do it all the time. It's a mammal thing to do.
I didn't know you were such an expert on shitting your pants.
I watch every bird. I'm like, shit itself and it
He's
flew away.
scared.
I mean, it.
Anyway,
and just one point on that, didn't Scott Hartwig put an actual example or two of that? And maybe it was the first Antietam book. I feel like I read that, like actual guys going in their pants kind of thing. Which, again, I read that in Scott. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Scott's book. I was like, Jesus, I've never read this before. You don't talk about it.
You don't, and they never talked about that before, but I love that historians aren't afraid to do that.
Yeah,
now.
right.
Because again, you're missing the point. If you're doing it for the movie version of history, then sayonara. I want nothing to do with you. Yeah. Honestly, because it's like that does such a disservice to the sacrifice these men and their families made in all the wars, and not just the Civil War, all of them.
Yep.
And to I don't know, it just bugs me. Okay, Mike, anything else?
Yeah, actually, two things here, and they're related to each other. The first Rhode Island Battery B.
Yes.
They were beat up pretty bad on the second day, and now they're involved in this cannonade. What motivated pulling them off of the line eventually? And then who came in to replace them?
So I think I heard the first part. So was the first part of that? Just repeat
Why don't
that,
you
Matt?
put the headphones on?
I really don't want to wear the
First
headphones. Just go on.
Because people have sweat in them. Hold on, Mike, wait. Hold on. I'm going to take mine off and just hold them out. Okay, go ahead. Listen.
All right,
go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so first Rhode Island Battery B gets beaten up pretty bad. Day 2, day 3 gets pulled out. Who replaces them?
There you go. Who replaced first Rhode Island Battery B?
So
Brown's Battery.
Yes. So is first Rhode Island Battery B gets pulled out? They get replaced primarily by Cowan's Battery, which is one of my favorite third day guys on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because Cowan's got a great quote as he goes into action behind what would then be the 69th Pennsylvania in and around the copse of trees. And Cowan starts hitting the boys of the 69th with the double and sometimes or hitting the enemy with the double and triple canister. But unfortunately, again, horrors of war, he starts hitting the 69th as well. Now that's not the quote, but that's part of it.
Here you go, Mike.
Did I get that to your satisfaction, Mike?
Yeah, because I was thinking about that. Double canister at 10 yards.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's hitting some of your own guys, too, if you're hitting them.
Exactly. And they talked about, members of the 69th Pennsylvania complained afterwards of that very fact. We're taking the enemy coming at us in front, and we're getting hit in the back of the head with canister.
Yeah.
It's
so for those of you who don't know Cowan's Battery here, watch this.
Double canister at 10 yards. Cowan's Battery. And let's look here. Here's one of the guns. Of course, this isn't one of the actual guns, but still, where the lawn ends, that's like Confederates coming right over there. Not very far away. Pretty scary.
Well,
If you were in this battery.
you've upped your game on the special effects since I was here for Ask a Guide number 124. Well,
I
did a hell of a good job there.
I took the week off and I feel rested. I'm like, I'm going to do a little extra here.
Can I read my Cowan quote? Because I just like it. I just like it. So this is Cowan. This is after the charge has hit the men of the 69th Pennsylvania, and it's a melee, and Cowan's guys are behind him. This is Cowan, as he recalled it. A good many of those 2 companies of the 69th ran away. Officers among them, as I saw plainly, and cursed them. One was a captain. He ran like a turkey with his sword tucked under his arm and his face distorted with fear. Corporal Plunkett near me was raging mad and swore at them like a pirate. I saw him pick up from the ground a Dutch coffee pot, maybe a little ground top in there.
Oh, perhaps.
A Dutch coffee pot by the handle and smash it on the head of one of the runaways. The bottom broke in, but that fellow went on running with the tin pot down on his ears. I can still see that fellow running away with the coffee pot down over his ears.
That's funny.
So first of all, I think it's funny. Second of all, it goes back to our earlier thing about keeping it real. These are real people, and they exhibit fear.
They just sat through an hour and a half of watching shells kill their friends.
And now,
on the line.
and now you're getting friendly fire in the back of your head from 10 yards away.
Yeah.
So I think it's a funny story. It's funny to think about. Obviously, I'm guessing the guy who ran away with the coffee pot around his ears, that was probably not a story he told the grandkids around the fire.
I would have.
But at the same time, again, it's fear and some of these other emotions that, again, we can't replicate as armchair generals.
No, we can't. All right. We must
That's it. Yep.
What, Mike?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you. I
night.
appreciate it. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Mike. Have a good night. Okay, 717-420-1978 is the phone number if you want to call in. But we must get to the actual infantry fighting here. Otherwise, we're going to be here until midnight.
Well, so all right, so we're kind of at the infantry fighting right now. I mean, I think we talk about, what do we got going there?
Do I buy in with $20?
What do you need?
Do I buy in with $20 cash to ask a question?
No, you're already here.
Okay.
But wait till we get to the, what is it about the bombardment?
It is.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I think you guys are talking a lot about maps, but can you also talk about the topography? And by the way, the extra tip is for mentioning Cowan, because what you guys may not know is I was born Elaine Cowan. So anytime you mention my family.
Of course
I did not
I
know
knew
that.
that, Elaine.
Yeah, you did.
I
I
knew
know
that.
you're Hessler. You're that solid.
Yeah.
You worked that right in there. That was
And
good.
I will enjoy
Good
that
job.
$20 tip tonight as we go home.
Well done,
Thank
6
you.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Jim
but
thinks he's
talk
getting the
about the
money.
topography a little bit, because you're talking about the maps, etc. But a lot of what's happening and what you can or can't see going into the bombardment has a lot to do with what the topography is in front of it that you can't see the map.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
guys.
put your money away. You're part of the show when you're here. So,
I'll just tip Hessler later.
oh, there you go. All right.
And
So,
I won't say no to that. So the fighting. Should we get to the fighting? We kind of already did. So the Cowan.
we'll work the topography in.
Yeah. So well, we kind of talked about that earlier as well. You know, these diagrams you see on social media implying that batteries with these fields of fire and lines of sight can hit each other. It's not like that at all. That's why, again, you got to get on the field with the topography and see what that battery or batteries could actually see. Absolutely right, Elaine.
If I remember from when I used to shoot guns a lot, I couldn't aim at what I couldn't see.
Yeah, right.
A little known fact. Okay. Pickett's division's making its way across, right? Union troops are watching them. What are some of the things that the Union troops are saying as they're watching them? I mean, of course, we hear the it's like a parade, dress parade. Yeah, really?
Yeah, exactly. And I think those are the types of comments that came up afterwards in the warm afterglow.
Right.
You know, it was the most spectacular thing I'd ever seen. I think in a lot of cases, these, again, factoring in however these people felt fatigue-wise or that, as I said before, a number of them talk about loading extra muskets, two, three guns by my side. They're waiting. There isn't, until they get within gunfire range, there isn't a whole lot that these guys can do other than wait. And when you walk Pickett's charge as a guide, that's why walking Pickett's charge is a more visceral experience. I mean, at some point, you can only make waiting behind a stone wall so exciting. But I do think
That's true.
As they get to the Emmitsburg Road, as the Confederates get to the Emmitsburg Road, I do think on the left, the Standard maneuver and the 8th Ohio maneuver on the right. I mean, these are really obvious. They're obviously critical moments in it. But if you want to get a little sex appeal into the defense here, these are also the most complicated maneuvers of the day. Particularly, I think on the left, Standard. I think Standard's move, in my view, is the most complex move that anybody performs on the July 3rd defense.
Well, walking Pickett's charge not obviously gives you the Confederate perspective, but it also, like you said, instead of standing behind a wall, you understand the defense and what they would have seen and when.
Yep.
And it answers a lot of questions, as opposed to standing there. You see a field, but you don't understand that this dress parade, quote unquote, coming at them was not something visible the whole time.
Right.
And it was not, and they were not coming in, they were shifting and they were moving and maneuvering.
That's exactly.
Well,
and Kemper is like all the way over to the right by the Spangler farm, and he has a great distance to cover.
That's a good segue back to my point about standards. So as Kemper comes across the Emmitsburg Road, Kemper's got to make this huge oblique. Basically, we think crossing the Emmitsburg Road around where the Klingel house still is, and then making that oblique across the field in front of Stannard's line towards Cemetery Ridge. And Stannard and his guys described this. They described it. They said, as the enemy started to pass towards us, the enemy made a right oblique. So now the enemy is facing them. They exchanged volleys in their front. But then Kemper's guys then moved by the left flank again to try to get further up towards the target area. That exposed Kemper to this great fire. So I know one of the questions was kind of about, is this by design or is it sort of by chance? I think it's a little bit of both. But I think in Stannard's case, Stannard talks about the rebels, quote, immediately changed flank by the left flank. When past our front, they changed direction by the right flank, marched directly to the attack of our lines. And that was when Stannard's guys, probably Stannard, probably Colonel Vesey, Hancock, as I said earlier, success has many authors. Later on, everybody sort of takes credit for saying, hey, go out and flank those bastards.
Yeah.
But the maneuver is difficult. Again, and a map, move 2 blocks in a map. It looks easy, but it's the 13th and the 16th Vermont coming out of line, stretch now. Basically you're perpendicular to the main line, stretching, because these are big units, stretching almost to the Kadori farm, and now hitting Kemper in the flank and probably the rear.
Well, why don't we go to camera 6 there, Tad, and let's show everybody what that might have looked like. We're going to look right down here in this area here, and we'll zoom in just a little bit more, and let's see how difficult that maneuver would be. We're moving forward 5 minutes at a time. There goes the 13th Vermont. Look at the 13th Vermont go. By the way, if you're people that listen to the show only on the podcast apps, you really should go and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see these live as they occur. Now 13th's wheeling a little bit more. It's almost like in the previous one, if you look, the 13th is coming out and it's kind of sneaking out, right? And it's and then look, we'll watch it, Mikey, watch it, and then you see, it's like
compliment.
And then all of a sudden, Kemper looks at him and they stop, and they're like, "Oh, wait, maybe we want to." No, okay, no, he's still going. All right, now we can go. It's okay. Let's go, guys.
And this is that human and improvisation aspect, because Kemper's expecting someone to be on his right.
Yeah.
Right? He's expecting people like Wilcox, who are supposed to be supporting him. So he's not doing anything he's not supposed to be doing. He's trying to get into the right place for the division to be massed in that spot. Yeah. And the only reason Stannard has the luxury of coming out and doing what he is because we don't see Anderson coming up.
It's a good point. Wilcox and Lang, as we know, are at least 15 minutes behind, maybe more, but they're at least 15 minutes behind. And then when they stepped off, and I'm on the edge of my seat to see how the map is going to represent it, but they don't follow Kemper directly. They kind of go more straight in. And it's one of the reasons why after Stannard's guys
I think we got some fighting to
dispose
do
of
up here.
Kemper.
Yeah. Up there goes Lang.
Okay, and then the 16th
Wilcox,
Vermont is going to
okay.
come around.
Yeah, I mean, even on their, their brigade markers and their after-action reports, they basically say, "So Smokey, we just kind of went in and then realized we weren't where we were supposed to be."
We were supposed to be.
And by then, it was.
All right, now I'm waiting. Where's the 6? All right, here they come.
Here they come. Give them time, Jim.
Here they
Give 'em
come,
time.
boys. So they're doing a lot of movement while Wilcox and Lang are just standing there. Yeah. All right.
Now, Wilcox and Lang went over essentially the same ground the day before.
Exactly. Which is really the tragedy of it.
Yeah.
Right? They fought for most of that same ground the day before, and here they are just doing it again.
And isn't Lang down to like 300 guys by this point?
Something like that, yeah.
And, so it's Lee's only got, as we pointed out before, Pickett. That's fresh.
I mean, in terms of fresh, yeah, that's it.
And so now, as you can see here, the Confederate attack.
Now, can the map?
We can go wherever you want.
Can the map give us Lieutenant Brown of the 13th charging at him with the camp hatchet? Could a map do that, man?
Zoom all the way in.
Let's zoom all the way in and see what we can find.
Will we see Bert? Because
all the way.
Probably everybody knows the story. Brown has had his sword
there he is, that guy right
taken
there.
away from him. There he is. The camp is swinging that camp hatchet.
No, unfortunately, it's not that detailed.
So true about Wilcox and I mean, it's okay, the same ground, but that's where you left your friends. There's a trauma associated with that, and you're going back to this almost the exact same place.
Oh yeah.
That is
imagine, and you're marching through. Your cousin Tommy's there,
it
still alive. He's been there overnight.
It wasn't where they intended to go, and they must have gotten over the road, and they were like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Well, they had to know where they were going.
Yeah.
I mean, Okay, so that you're talking about the flanks. We were talking about the
Standard on the left,
Union flank, left, Union left. But also the right flank is very interesting too, because I mean, I had to have read this before, but it never sunk in with me, and I forgot that it's not just the 8th Ohio. The 8th Ohio gets all the glory, but they're not the only one in the story.
Yeah, they do, and you're right. There's other regiments in that pile. The 8th Ohio is the one we always focus on. I think the 8th Ohio originates the move. Franklin Sawyer. So, I think give Sawyer his credit.
Sure.
So I did a Pettigrew Trimble tour, I guess last fall for the ALBG. And, we had a little bit of a spirited conversation with a colleague or two about where was the 8th Ohio versus Brockenbrow's brigade, because we really haven't touched the Pettigrew Trimble line tonight. But I'm sure we did on our 3-hour epic.
I don't know if we did.
That preceded the night.
We must have.
I don't remember if we did either.
I hope.
But by the book, folks, if you missed the podcast. But obviously Brockenbrow's brigade, which was on the extreme left of the Confederate attack, Pettigrew's left flank. Brockenbrow's guys have been struggling pretty much from the get-go. They were late stepping off. They're lagging behind everybody. The 11th Corps batteries, again, Osborne on Cemetery Hill, talks about hammering these guys with artillery fire as they're going across the field. And they talk about, seeing arms, legs, knapsacks just coming out of these dust clouds. But Brockenbrow's guys turned back, I think, not long after crossing over Long Lane. And as Brockenbrow's guys turn back, that gives the 8th Ohio, Sawyer's unit, the opportunity to come forward onto sort of their main line and then basically pivot by their flank, face in layman's terms, basically face to their left, and now start pouring in fire into what would be the left flank of Davis's brigade and the rest of Pettigrew's lines. So I always tell people at this point, Standard on one end, the 8th Ohio, and yes, other guys, other units pour in. I'm sure your map can adequately represent the other units.
Well, here we go. Let's see if it can.
A little bit of Woodruff's battery. We don't want to neglect Woodruff.
Of course not. Now we got to zoom in. Of course, I think many of you can assume that this part of the town, which is called Colt Park, did not exist at the time.
What?
Yes. So this thin line here, this thin blue line, 8th Ohio, 108th New York, and 136th New York, this is a skirmish line.
Yep.
All right, so let's see what happens. Ready? Go.
And on the right, well, Matt, you
What,
can see
Mikey?
the guns on the right there. You just can't underestimate how much
No,
artillery
well, yeah,
was on
look
the
at
right.
them.
right.
Let's look at
You're
them.
right.
Watch them adjust, okay?
11th Corps Osborne says we were wreaking havoc on these guys.
There you
And
go.
he's
So-
right. You're marching right into it.
So at the bottom, you got the 8th Ohio coming out to the skirmish line, more reinforcements out there. Now, look, here comes the 136th New York. They're like, hey, guys.
Oh, my God. They just ran over Cook's house. Oh, my God.
And they keep on coming, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
here.
very nice.
And now look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing.
And if you want to dive into the 8th Ohio, we did a great episode with Stuart Dempsey
Yeah.
on Carroll's Brigade, where we
Yeah.
go pretty extensively into
Okay,
them.
so we won't deep dive.
No, we
tonight.
don't need a deep dive there. But I just want to give you all an idea of what's
Yeah.
going on, because
Yeah.
what is so fascinating about this, and I'm going to pull out a little bit here, so that you can start seeing the Confederates. Now,
Well, first of all, I
Oh,
just
go
want to
ahead.
say out loud, I'm glad that map agreed with my interpretation of Brockenbrow's brigade, because not everybody did. But
Okay.
I'm glad me and the map are on the same page.
well, perhaps you're one of the authorities he consulted.
I like to think I should be.
So you can see, though, like the flanks are coming in on the Confederates, and the Confederates have to refuse their flanks in order to meet these threats, and still try to move forward. So let's
Yeah.
go ahead, keep talking, Jim.
No, you know what I like to tell people at this point, whether Lee and Longstreet realize it or not, defeat is officially in progress. Because obviously at this point, the formations are breaking up. You've had these two most complicated maneuvers. And again, way down on the other side, when Wilcox and Lang show up, we talked about 16th Vermont hitting them again. So you're not getting any support coming in here. And really, by the time they get across the Emmitsburg Road, one account indicated that the Confederates really looked like a disorganized mob. Now, the meat of what's left of Pickett's division is going to hit Webb's brigade front. And, that does give us the moment here where, because A, Cushing's battery has been shot to pieces, but B, you have a number of companies of the 71st Pennsylvania basically at that area today that we know as the angle, not the whole regiment, but you have a couple companies in front and a couple companies on the back line. They, I think, partially by design, and we can go into more detail on this in the Q&A, but I think by partial design, when the 71st pulls back and Cushing's guns are silent, that gives Armstead and his guys the foothold they need on that part of the stone wall at the angle. So this is kind of the one faux pas, if you will, in the Union defense here during the charge.
So let's look at that on the map, and then I have a
can't
question for you. I can't wait. All right, here we go. So there we go. You got the 71st there, and then look at that, all those Confederates coming in there, and oh boy, we're pulling back, and then everything's coming in. And let's see what happens after that, right? And then we move along, and there's the 72nd coming in, and they're like, hey, those are our buddies. Don't do that.
That's what they said.
That's what they said. Get out of there, guys. Okay, now the Confederate. Now, so there you go. What more do you want? And Weir's battery came up.
Okay.
All right. Anything else I can do for you, Jim?
Yeah, could I have another cookie?
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Do we have any more cookies?
Yeah, so this is Webb obviously now having to do something for the breakthrough on his line. Cushing's battery is silent, 71st is pulled back. The right flank, the right companies of the 69th have refused to try to protect their right end. This is where Webb, and remember, Webb is brand new to command of this brigade.
Right.
He's only been in command for a couple of days. He's one of George Meade's old buddies. He's
Go ahead, Tad. You can come back.
somebody coming in studio here. We've waved in the cookies.
Thank you,
You
Elaine.
need the whole box?
No. I just wanted to. I don't know what we have. I'm just going to randomly pick one. What is this one?
Barely.
one you need to try.
Oh, okay.
See what's left.
That's what I'll try then. Here we go. This is, I don't know what this
Can we
is.
give another promo to the Gettysburg cookie?
There it is. Gettysburg Cookie Company. There's something in the middle of this cookie here. It's like
I
an
think it is now.
oatmeal,
You're
butternut,
gonna be good.
squash,
Oh,
raisin plum.
All right.
thank you. Elaine.
Thank you,
Oh.
Elaine.
Break. There you go.
Oh,
So
listeners at home. Oh, so good.
you're missing out.
What's
I
the
want
what's
some
the
your
name of it?
cookie. I want a little bit of your cookie.
What is the name of this one?
The company, I mean.
Oh, Gettysburg Cookie.
I like it that
Small piece.
Yeah.
All right, listen.
Thank you.
Here's my question. I was looking through the Leno book last night, and he seems to. I don't have it in here. I should have brought it in, but he seems to on the map indicate that there's a second stone wall. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here on the map and just show you the area I'm talking about. I think. Yeah. Okay. So here's the angle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Cushing's
The
battery.
angle's
Wait, where am
further
I?
south.
Just see where we're at.
Oh,
There
wait,
it is.
I'm so confused.
There's the angle.
Where? This?
Yes.
Kiss my ass. Okay. Oh, it is. Yeah. It is.
I didn't know I was
Okay.
coming on to watch TV all night.
I know. So here's the angle. Okay. Right there it is. I see it now.
Okay.
All right. Now, you got Cushing's battery back here somewhere, right? His monuments are back here. His guns are back here.
Okay.
Now, he seems to indicate, and the way it's drawn on the map, it looks like a broken stone wall that's here.
Okay.
So my question is, when there's all this, dispute about were his guns at the wall? The wall looks to be about, on the map at least, looks to be about where his guns are.
That's interesting.
And during the break, I can go grab the book and I'll show you.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
you've ever heard of a second stone wall.
No, I can't recall. I can't recall ever pondering or discussing that. But you're right. Obviously, the big debate is how many of Cushing's guns. I mean, the big debate for people who care. How many of Cushing's guns are at the wall? The wall. How many companies of the 71st are at the forward wall versus the back wall? So you're right. It's a dilemma, folks. Chocolate chip.
I don't know what this is. It's oatmeal something, but it's really good, and there's a gooey thing in the middle. All right, Brandon, you're on the air, sir.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great.
So I wanted to call in, and I wanted to ask about the 53rd Virginia. I have a relative that fought in that regiment and survived the battle, but I guess when I walk the battlefield, I live in Hanover, so not super far away. But when I go to the battlefield and I walk the field where I believe the 53rd would be, I guess my question is, what should I be looking for? Is there anything specific? Because I've looked at the maps, and sometimes it's hard to really tell where they are based on where you're standing in the field.
You got that?
Yeah. I think I did.
My mouth's full. I can't repeat that.
So, the 53rd, if I recall correctly, is kind of in the middle of Armistead's line. But, if you're talking about you're walking the field, I mean, by the time they get across the Emmitsburg Road, and certainly by the time they get to the stone wall, I don't know what we've got left in terms of formations or anything that we could place their their line at. I guess if they're kind of about the middle of the line, you could probably pace off a little bit, maybe from the angle, the midpoint, maybe between the angle and maybe the right flank marker of the 69th, and maybe you could kind of say, hey, it's roughly there, about where they hit. Now, if we were going back to the Confederate attack episode, remember they stepped off from the area in front of Spangler's Woods, in front of the Point of Woods, and again, you could kind of count off the midpoint there. I don't know if that helps you, but
What did you say? They were in the center of Armistead's
if
line?
I remember correctly, I think they're right about in the
Show
center.
me center. There we go.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it
All
right. All right. Very
All right.
good.
Ask a guide, folks. Ask a guide.
All right. Brandon, was that a sufficient answer?
Did that help?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I actually, one more little piece I want to add. So Armistead, it's funny that my relative was in the 53rd.
I lived in New Bern, North Carolina, where Armistead was born, and I have the same birthday as Armistead as well, which is a cool little fact.
Well,
That's awesome.
And what was your relative's name?
I'm going to be honest, I don't remember. I literally just like a week ago started diving into more genealogy, and I found out that he is part of my family. I think he's a cousin, actually.
Okay.
But he ends up surviving, and then he gets wounded in the leg at Dryer's Bluff down in Virginia, and then he's sent home after he gets shot in the leg, and he can't fight anymore.
Would you like to talk to Dick Johnson from Australia? Brandon?
Sure.
Yep. Dick Johnson, you're on the air with Brandon from Hanover, PA, and Jim Hessler.
It's an honor to have Brandon and James Hessler to talk to.
I'm sure it is. Brandon, do you regret saying yes to that question?
No, I got a bunch of Australian friends, so this is actually like a normal, Wednesday night for me.
This is backfired.
Jesus, it blew up in my face.
I gotta be honest too, Brandon. Sounds a lot like 6 questions lengths. This isn't Mike calling back in under incognito, is it? Trying to get a few more questions.
No, I promise you.
All right.
No, I'm a long-time listener. I fell in love with Gettysburg when I was 13 years old. So,
does his wife know? Well, Brandon, I hope to see you out at one of our Get Out of the Car tours sometime soon, sir, or our Christmas party. But whatever. Thank you for the call.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, you're very welcome. And now I got to go do some time with this crazy Australian. So, thank you very much, sir. Good to hear from you. All right, Tad. Not Tad. What's your name? Grant. What's up?
What's up there, Matty, old boy?
How you doing, son? Hurry up. We want to go home.
We're running long
you
again.
You dragged on so much and didn't let Jim talk. So
that is true.
That's why the show's so long.
Very good.
We spend so much time watching TV that we haven't. Yeah,
I know.
Now, may I say it's my privilege to be able to speak to the host of my favorite Gettysburg podcast.
Wow, we talk
Jim,
every week.
It's an honor.
Oh.
Thank you.
Didn't see that one coming from
Yeah, really.
half the world away.
You haven't used that one 60 times already.
I felt like that one was coming. I couldn't believe you missed the beep button on that one. Yeah, thank you.
No, I like to let Grant.
It's great to have a host that has charm and humor and takes the history seriously. So I'm glad that you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll try.
Hold on, Grant. Let me get my button ready. Go yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, that hurts, Matt. That hurts. It's like a knife in the back.
Come on now.
Okay, I have a couple of questions about the cannonade.
One. Just pick one. We're never getting out of here. I got to do Christmas shopping sometime. Hurry, Grant. Hurry. Come on.
Where was Hunt, Jim? Where was Hunt positioned during the cannonade? Did he have pick a position, or was he constantly moving?
Yeah, I think he was on the move. We know he spent a little time up at Cemetery Hill talking to Osborne and those guys. We know he spent a little bit of time on McGilvery's line. So probably a combination of on the move with a couple of key stops.
All right, you get one more. You can do one.
And
more.
Did he specifically order the guys on the heights, like Little Round Top and all that, to monitor the damage and all that? Were they sort of relaying all sort of the critical information, all that sort of thing?
That's a good question. To my best of my recollection, Rittenhouse, who was commanding the battery on Little Round Top, because Hazlitt had been killed the prior day, Rittenhouse leaves a good account. I don't recall, off the top of my head, Grant, I don't recall anything in the record talking about them relaying information. As I said earlier, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just always sort of take the historian approach and say, look, it is or isn't in the record. And I don't recall reading that they did that. We might assume that they did, but I just don't, off the top of my head, have it.
Grant, thank you very much for the
fair
phone
enough.
call.
Thanks, Grant.
And,
Great answer from a great man.
and I love you in spite of your
To
horribleness.
tie something in real quick with what Brandon said about where was my ancestor, where was this unit, and to just circle back to things we've mentioned today about maps and how things just aren't clean moving. When we did that Stu Dempsey episode, and I found that citation of the guy from the 8th Ohio, he captures the 38th Virginia's flag.
Yeah.
And that's Armistead's brigade. But if you look at that map or any map, the 38th Virginia is nowhere near where the 8th Ohio is. So it just tells you they're not retreating as an organized map.
Yes, and you know what? Actually, just to bring up an example here, keep the camera on me for a minute. One of the things I have in my little bag of tricks here, I think it's Gettysburg Magazine number 21. Gettysburg Magazine 21, late great Bruce Trink, who was a friend of mine and unfortunately has since passed away, did exactly that point, Mike. He did an article talking about who was credited with whose flag captures. And you're right, in a lot of cases, it's a linear, the regiment you would think was in front of them captured the flag. But in some cases, then you get a crazy outlier.
Yeah, in his details, Armistead is doing a fighting retreat, and they're refusing their flank to go against the 8th Ohio, which, again, in no map you're going to find.
Right.
But it's all just improvisation, and it's just...
So I want to be clear. I agree with you, but remember, too, there's also the dynamic afterwards of people complaining about guys just running into the melee and picking up a flag. Stolen valor, just running in, grabbing a flag and giving it to the commander and saying, "Look, so
Mikey and I would have done.
In some of those off the off the sort of the linear formation pickups, there could be some of that going on too."
Okay. Ready to take our break and then come back for the questions?
Yeah.
All right, good. So we're going to come back after these quick words, and oh my God, you're not going to believe what wonderful things we have for you. So we'll be right back after this.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic. 717-420-1978. See you in a sec.
Hello, I hope you're enjoying this free episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And it's made possible by our patrons over at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. And now, through the month of September, we are offering new patrons, all new patrons who sign up for the first lieutenant level, we're offering you 25% off an annual membership. It's got to be annual, and you get 25% off. So go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg and sign up for the annual membership and use promo code 1LT25. That's like first lieutenant 25% off, Use 1LT25 at checkout. Don't delay. The offer expires September 30th at 11:59. So that's once again Addressing Gettysburg's Patreon at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, or you can just scan this QR code, 1LT25.
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneer's initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
The Gettysburg Museum of History, located right here in the center of Gettysburg, PA. Owner and curator Eric Dorr grew up here and has spent his life collecting and preserving history through artifacts ranging from the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, World War II, presidential items, pop culture, and more. His museum is free and open to visitors Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 5 p.m., where you can stop by and immerse yourself in some of the most amazing artifacts that you would never believe exist in the middle of Gettysburg. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers and Everything Easy Company, you'll love his exhibit featuring the Dick Winters collection and artifacts from D-Day. You can even own your own piece of history by buying one of the many relics they have for sale in the museum and on the website GettysburgMuseumofHistory.com. The Gettysburg Museum of History is a non-profit 501c3 organization with a foundation that allows all purchases and donations to keep the museum operating and open free of charge. They have been featured on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, and the Science Channel. Now you can check them out on American Artifact, the series on the YouTube channel, The History Underground. So that's the Gettysburg Museum of History at 219 Baltimore Street or the GettysburgMuseumofHistory.com.
If you like this podcast and what we're doing here, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Pickett's charge take?
That's another great question.
Who can forget the sounds of the 60s?
The 1860s. I can't, and you can't either. Now, there's Marching Through Georgia, the exciting new album by Billy Webster. All of your favorite hits of the 1860s in one place. Such hits as Gary Owens, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, All Quiet Along the Potomac Tonight, Marching Through Georgia, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Go to billysongs.com and order your digital download of Billy Webster's Marching Through Georgia today. That's billysongs.com. Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum, is housed in the historic Lutheran Seminary building constructed in 1832, a witness to the first day of battle. The museum's 3 floors of exhibits connect visitors to the dilemmas that led to the Civil War, provide a powerful and personal view of the battle's first day, and explore one of the battlefield's largest hospitals. No visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center is complete without a guided tour of the building's famous cupola, where on the eve of battle, officers and civilians saw thousands of Confederate soldiers' campfires burning to the west, and Brigadier General John Buford watched for vital federal reinforcements as fighting erupted on the morning of July 1st. Today, you can stand where Buford stood and discover how this view helped chart the course of the Battle of Gettysburg. Your trip to Gettysburg is not complete without a serious visit to Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum. Purchase tickets online at seminaryridgemuseum.org or call 717-339-1300.
To get tickets or a cupola tour, listeners may call or walk in and mention address in Gettysburg, or by ordering online using the promo code AG1863 for 20% off.
Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. It began here.
There's a devil to pay.
When you're dragging ass out of bed, and the hairs mussed up on your head. You picture the 20th Maine, and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with little ground top, bro.
When you're dragging ass out of bed, the hair's mussed up on your head. You picture the 20th Maine, and you're happy once again. Fight the battle against being slow with little ground top, bro.
Addressing Gettysburg's Little Ground Top by Bantam Roasters is available at 82 Steinware Avenue in Gettysburg or at addressinggettysburg.com/cafe.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, God. Well, I forgot to get another bag of Little Ground Top. But ladies and gentlemen, we all love coffee. We love coffee. We love booze. Some of us love pills, Mikey. I don't particularly like pills, but coffee is wonderful. And Little Ground Top is one of the most wonderfulest coffees you'll ever have. That's not my opinion. That's not Jim's opinion.
No, it's
That's
really
science. That's science. Trust the science, ladies and gentlemen. The science says Little Ground Top is the greatest coffee. Now, let me tell you why. Because it's got notes of cacao, wildflowers, and toasted sugar. Yeah, you know how you love toasted sugar. We all love toasted sugar. Do we? Have you ever had toasted sugar?
Oh, I only have my sugar toasted.
Every time I've tried to put sugar in my toaster, it just hangs out at the bottom and I can never get it out again.
You're not toasting, right? You need to get a sugar toaster.
I did not know they existed. But you know what exists? Bantam Roasters exists, and that's where you can go in when you come to town and get your bag of Little Ground Top. It is so delicious. It is a wonderful medium blend coffee. Mikey B drinks a lot of coffee. He loves his Little Ground Top. He says it helps gets things moving in the morning. And that's what we designed it for. It's the greatest laxative
Little
on
Ground
earth.
Top. It'll make you crap.
That's right. So
you want the authentic Civil War experience of a soldier in battle.
Yeah, right. Little Ground Top. We should call it dysentery in a bag. It's really wonderful. Of course, I'm making fun of it because I know that none of what I'm saying, mocking it, is true. It is just the greatest thing you'll ever have. Go to 82 Steinware Avenue, across from the Dobbin House, when you're in town. And, listen, they go fast. They tend to bag them on Friday, and by noon Saturday, they're gone. So if you're coming to town, you think, I'll get one on Sunday on the way out of town, you will be sorely disappointed. But that's where the beauty of the interwebs comes in, because you can go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe and order your bag there. And you know what? You might as well just subscribe to it, order it. You get one every month or whatever you want, whatever the frequency is that you want. And that's the only way to fly, as far as I'm concerned. Little Ground Top. Yummy, yummy, yummy. I've got LGT in my tummy.
Super chats of $10 or more rise above the din in the comments section. Now that that's out of the way, let's ask a Gettysburg guide.
Well, before
Here's
we
Matt and the gang.
Oh, sorry, Court. Before we do, we want to thank Michael Six Questions Lens for his 2 super chats. Read them off to us there, Mikey.
No, he just thanked Jim for taking his questions and said that him and Wayne's book helped him a great deal with his written exam. He said Mike B is always awesome. I mean,
I read it during the break, and he did not say that.
Yeah, it says it right there.
At
Mike
all.
B is always
You
awesome. I
just threw
admire
that
his
in.
knowledge and appreciate his perspective. You know what, Mike? I'm going to pay that back to you, buddy. It's very
Wow.
nice of you.
Wow.
Mike, stick together.
Paying it forward. Okay. Bob Passamenti, the guy who gave us the food, he has a question, and that's going to be the first question that we get to. But I just noticed we have a caller, and we want our callers to be heard. Zach, you're on the air. Zach.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Jim. How's it going?
How are you doing?
We're doing good.
I'm hanging in there. So my question is about how, I know there were a few prisoners taken from the 69th Pennsylvania. Were there any others taken from the Union lines back to Confederate lines?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm glad you mentioned that. So yes, there are prisoners taken from the 69th Pennsylvania. We have several Confederate accounts talking about scooping up prisoners. Probably my favorite account is Sergeant Major Stockton of the 71st Pennsylvania. So he's one of the companies at the wall. And what Stockton says is the Confederates hit the wall. He says, like a wave, they came over the wall, and then they just sort of receded and took me and some of my other guys with them. You know, which again is a great way of saying you surrendered without saying you surrendered.
Right.
Come on, like gravity just pulled us back. Give me a break.
Yeah, like they were caught in the undertow.
Right. So we have this flat stone kind of right at the on the other side of the angle today that we actually call the Stockton Rock because of that. So there are accounts talking about that. I'm glad you brought it up in the bigger picture, because what that says to me, that on different parts of the line, yes, they did bag some Union prisoners. Now, in a lot of cases, the prisoners, would be like, okay, screw it. The Confederates are losing. Let's just go back. So they didn't stay in captivity. But the fact that these guys surrendered tells me that if you were on the ground fighting this fight, it looked more desperate and to be decided than the lopsided, one-sided effort we often make it out to be. That's what that tells me. If you were on the ground and you see a wave of gray coming at you, there were probably moments when blue guys on the field said, oh crap, we've lost. The day is ours. And I think that's what that says to me.
It's also a time frame unlike today where surrendering isn't this great shame either. It's almost like not a common thing, but we did an episode on that before with a guy that wrote a great book about surrendering in the Civil War. Is it called Raising the White Flag?
Raising the White Flag, Silkenat, I think is his last name.
It's great because he just talks about, especially when they're doing the paroles and exchanges, there wasn't as much shame in it. So it's pretty easy to understand where, okay, we're surrounded. Your option isn't fight to the death. No, you go back with the people grabbing you, because that's what you do.
Yep.
Anything else, Zach?
Well, it kind of works in retrospect too, because the Confederates, they grab somebody and then they're like, well, we can get out of here. And just head right back to their own lines too.
Yeah. And remember too, I'll just say, the Union, we know, captures thousands of Confederate prisoners, and at some point, so many Confederate prisoners are being shuffled over the other side of Cemetery Ridge that Yankees and Union soldiers and officers down along the Tawny Town Road see so many gray guys coming over the ridge, they think that they've lost the day.
Doesn't that happen to the 10th New York? Who's the guard? Meade gets back to headquarters and orders them to go into the center. And then as they're heading up the ridge, a whole bunch of Confederates are coming over the ridge. And then they finally realize they're prisoners. And then they end up escorting them.
They think the day is lost.
Is it the 10th New York?
These guys
Do you
are coming
remember?
over. I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Zach?
Nope. That's it.
Thank you for calling in, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
You have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right, so Bob Passamenti said, Jim, if you could beam yourself to any point in the Union defenses during Pickett's charge for any 5 minutes, but only 5 minutes, Jimmy, where would you choose?
Oh, good, interesting question, Bob. And once again, Bob, thanks for the food.
Yes.
You've filled us up again.
Yep.
I think if it were only 5 minutes during the charge, it would have to be the moment Armistead hits and penetrates at the angle, just to see what that looked like, just to see it. It is one of the most iconic moments of the battle. It's one of the most iconic moments of the Civil War. It's literally the high water mark. I think to be there and see that would probably be the 5 minutes I would.
That's a good answer. I think that's a good answer, because that's probably, I don't know if it's the most controversial part of when the two lines of infantry finally come in contact with each other. But I mean, I hear people.
It's just a great moment in Civil War history, and to be there to see it. Armistead at the angle, I think that would probably be it.
I think that's a good one. All right, Tim Matthews says, please ask Jim to articulate the specifics of the second wave strategy for the Confederates. Also, why didn't the second wave actually happen? Because there are no troops.
Well, the second wave is a contentious topic. And some people, including some friends of mine, don't like the term second wave. But let's just say, is there another wave of troops slated to come in? Now, you got to remember that what was left of Anderson's division, Wright's brigade, Posey's brigade, Mahoney's brigade, parts of Pender's division, Thomas's brigade, some of these guys are on the field. And Anderson in particular was told, hey, I was supposed to follow up any success. And as the moment seemed to arrive and they started to mobilize these brigades, Longstreet reportedly came on the scene and said, now stop. The attack has failed, just stop. So there aren't a lot of brigades, but these would seem to be the ones you'd be picking from. And I think in Longstreet's case, he probably said, okay, enough of this. We're not sending these guys forward. And that's ultimately why it didn't play out.
But why are these other units not moved to a position to be of better support? Like, they're basically where they were when they went to bed last night.
It's a fair question. I think one of the things they talk about within Hill's line, Third Corps, Anderson's division is part of the Third Corps, is part of this idea that, okay, if we meet with disaster, you guys got to be in position to basically be our reserve. If we meet with disaster, you guys might be all we have left.
So in other words, reserve to fall back on, not to pull up to our line.
So I think that, and I'm speculating because I don't think anybody ever physically said this is why. It could be one of those scenarios of, oh yeah, why didn't anybody get these guys ready? I think the whole Confederate effort that day is plagued with issues with staff work and communication and coordination. And, that's kind of one of the mysteries of the charge.
So he says, assuming either wave broke through the Union line, what next? Didn't Lee know there were massive reserves waiting to pounce?
I guess not. I think it goes back to what we said before. I think you're hoping to induce basically some sort of panic within the enemy's ranks, which from our distance, it's hard for us to visualize that. But I think, Armistead Long, Lee's military secretary, he said the plan was to break the line in half and then turn our attention towards Cemetery Hill. So if there was a what's next, that would probably be the what's next.
And Lee's experience just a couple months before at Chancellorsville, it didn't concern him what was in reserve or behind.
True.
The Union line could have just crumbled like it did previously.
His very name might be audacity.
The idea is trying to get more guys at the point of concentration than the enemy has. And of course, we know it didn't work. But that's the idea.
Mark Miller says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how influential do you believe Henry Hunt was during the repulse of the Pickett, Pettigrew, Trimble assault?
1 to 10, I'm going to give... There's probably people out there who are shouting at their computer right now and saying 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Hunt an 8. And I'm going to give Hunt an 8 because at the end of the day, some infantry did reach the Union defenses, and it did require Union infantry to take care of business. If I were going to give Hunt a 10, that would imply that nobody reached the line. So I'm going to give him an 8, a good solid 8. An 8 is a fine grade, but I'll give him an 8, and then the infantry takes care of business with the rest.
I got straight 8s all in school. 80%, man. I was happy with that.
8 out of 100? Or
8 out of 100.
Right, so.
Yeah, straight 8s. Greg Caston says, so I have heard that earlier in the day, Pendleton had moved 7 or 10 cannon. I think they were more of a howitzer type tube, lobbing shells, blah, blah, blah. From somewhere near the Emmitsburg Road, could have had a dramatic effect. Is this a fact? And if so, do you believe this artillery could have been impactful enough and in a position to affect the outcome at the wall?
Yeah, so it's a well-worn story. They needed to move guns forward with the infantry to protect the flanks. Apparently, some of these howitzers, because they're shorter range, would have been the ones for the job. Pendleton moves them. He doesn't tell Alexander, and Alexander can't find him when the time comes. I don't think we specifically know where they got moved to, but if you look at one of Batchelder's maps, they are kind of represented on Batchelder's maps, kind of in that general area today behind the kind of behind the North Carolina monument and a little off to the side, kind of in the area where what we would call the Brown Ranch or the Pitzer Farm is.
Okay.
They're represented there on one of the Batchelder maps. Did Batchelder have information putting them there, or did he just put them somewhere for the hell of it? You know, Batchelder's a pretty thorough guy, so when people ask me where were they, that's usually the best answer I give them.
All right. Mikey.
Yeah, we had two questions for Jim from Super Chats. One is from Grant, who we spoke to already, but he did donate. Thank you, Grant.
Oh, thank you, Grant.
He said, Jim is a great guest. He said, what info did Meade actually have about the effectiveness of the cannonade while it was happening? And did he consider moving men from the exposed area?
Yeah, so I think while the cannonade is happening, I think Meade is probably not getting a lot of information because, again, we know he's in motion with the overshots, as we've said, going down the road to a barn and then ultimately ending up at Powers Hill. So during the cannonade itself, I don't think Meade is getting a whole lot of info or anything that he can act on. As we said, Hunt says when it's time to end the cannonade, he meets a courier from Meade with the same thing, and I think that's probably about the best we've got.
This is a good question. This is a question that people who are new to this can learn from. Jeffrey Brown sends this question in. He says, my Gettysburg question is this. If Stannard's Vermont Brigade was in the 1st Corps, how did they wind up on the left of the 2nd Corps? This placed them in position to do their famous flanking maneuver and fire into the Confederates as all the right plan. My impression is that the 1st Corps had been badly mauled on the first day. Why weren't the Vermonters helping hold the 1st Corps line up around East Cemetery Hill? So there's a couple good answers to this here that people can learn from here, Jim.
Yeah, no pressure for a good answer on this one. In Stannard's case, they were one of the units that were not engaged on the first day, and I think as guys are coming up on the field, remember by this point, the 1st Corps has been turned over to Newton. Some of the 1st Corps guys that were on the field on July 1st, like, Hosanna, the Iron Brigade, and a lot of these guys who were here on July 1st were pushed up in and around the north side of Culp's Hill and that sort of thing to protect the area needed at the time. When Stannard and some of these other guys come up later, now the area that you need is that a little bit to the left of the 2nd Corps. So it's one of these things, again, we like to think of corps and brigades and divisions all sticking together, but they don't. Mm-hmm. As we'll see with the 6th Corps, they don't either. So there are exceptions to that.
And they're spread everywhere. But the 1st Corps goes from Stannard up to the Ziegler's Grove, and they're still up near Stevens Knoll. So
yeah. And like I said, the guys up by Ziegler's Grove, Stevens Knoll, Culp's Hill, these are a lot of the guys that were here on the 1st. Again, Stannard's kind of coming in late to the game, so he kind of fills the plug that's needed at that time.
Van Cornish III. Haven't heard from him in a while. Good to hear from you, Van. Says, for the Union defense of Pickett's charge, podcast, okay. I'd love to hear more of the Hunt-Hancock controversy over the artillery's role during the charge. Which side of the federal fence did other Union generals land on? Yeah, so we kind of said where we fall. Where do other Union generals fall on that argument, or do they not even weigh in on it?
I don't know. Hunt and Hancock, it's great because they spend a lot of time squabbling about it afterwards. I mean, some of the correspondence that goes back and forth, I think it generally falls upon partisan lines. The 2nd Corps guys and the 2nd Corps supporters like Walker, who does the history of the 2nd Corps. Needless to say, he's very much on Hancock's side. some of the artillerists. He talked about Phillips, and some of these guys are snickering at how little this infantry guy knows about artillery. So I think it pretty much falls on party lines. Like, I don't know a specific, well, Howard said this or Sickles said that kind of thing. But I think just sort of think of it in terms of the infantry guys that weigh in tend to go more with Hancock. The artillery guys tend to go more with Hunt.
Rob Fry asks, what is the most overlooked unit that heavily participated in the defense but does not get the press it deserves?
Well, I'm glad that came up, because somebody I wanted to talk about tonight that we didn't talk about is Norman Hall.
And you even said, I hope we can talk about.
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity to do that. And Harrow and Hall. Webb gets all the press. He's at the angle. He's at the high water mark. He looks good. Webb gets all the press, but at the end of the day, it's Webb's line that breaks. Harrow and Hall, to the left, south of the copse of trees, these are the guys they run in and help save his bacon. So I would definitely give Harrow. And this goes back to something I said, 2 hours ago. Again, a lot of my friends, well, at this point, Meade throws in the reinforcements. No, I don't think he does. I think it's the guys on the ground making the decision. Now, Frank Haskell, I think, has an account. Frank Haskell has an account where he says, I went over to Hall and told him to go in, and he agreed, but it's the guys on the ground. Hall and Harrow, I think, do not get talked about, and their men, of course, do not get talked about nearly enough.
The regiments do.
Sometimes.
But not...
Yeah, not them.
Them.
Right.
You never really... They're not famous names. I wonder if it's because... Is it Hall's brigade marker that's not facing the road because it's facing the old road?
Well, the Massachusetts, they got moved and all of that stuff. You've got a First Minnesota secondary monument that nobody ever goes and stops and talks about. I think it could be any number of things. I think the problem, personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I think it's just a matter of they're not at the angle, they're not at the high water mark in terms of their position designations. Webb's the guy we talk about. Before we move on, too, I want to give an honorable mention, too, to Alexander Hayes, because I love him, too. And he's the same way on the north side. At one point, after it's over, Webb supposedly yells over to Hayes, boy, it looked pretty desperate there for a while. And Hayes goes, not on my line, it didn't. Right?
Yeah.
So, and some of it is access, too. I mean, when we're going to go see Pickett's charge, the road takes you right to Webb's brigade. Now, if you remember where that U.S. Regulars monument is, there was a second road that went behind Harrow and Hall's line. So that I think if that road was still there, if vehicles were still going there, they might visit those monuments more, because I don't think many people get out and walk that line.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting you bring that up there, Mikey, because one of my favorite things is hidden roads. In your face, hidden roads.
Right in it.
And this was the first one I learned about when I moved back here to Gettysburg on a battle walk with Troy Harmon. Let's watch this wonderful, gripping video.
More videos.
So in case we mentioned the old Park Road here on the show, I just thought I'd
and you did,
video
Mike.
Of it to show you.
That was not planned, by the way.
let's,
Did you have that loaded up?
I have it ready to go.
That's
in case, because I wanted to point it out.
Are we just going to keep it going?
And maybe you can see that right behind the line of monuments, the shade of green of the grass changes. Thank you. The sun went down a bit so I can tell you. Right about there, right there, that is one of the old park roads. I'd show you the one behind me, but there's a school group up there, and I'm not going to bother. So that's that. But you're just going to have to come here to the park and get out and see it all for yourself.
There you go,
Great
ladies
minds
and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Look at that. It wasn't a school group because it's not even school field trip time, but it was a group of, probably a church group or something. Anyway, where the hell? Oh, I got the questions.
Yeah,
okay,
next
so
question.
let's do that. All right, next questions. Vince Farina. He says, let's see here. I'm going to pick one of his questions. He's, all right, I like this one here. Where the hell was Lawrence Chamberlain? Lying in the grass? Where was the 20th Maine? They were up on Big Round Top, weren't they, at this point?
Well, so prior to the charge, they're moved. The 20th Maine is basically moved into that area where the New Jersey Watchtower is, kind of that ridge line. Today, kind of in and around the Wheatfield Road area. Again, the New Jersey Brigade Monument is there. So the 20th Maine is back in the woods in that general area. Not on the round tops during the charge, not at the angle, kind of somewhere in the middle.
So here he's got a bunch of questions. I'm going to pick this one here. The 71st Pennsylvania, there's often debate about the 71st withdrawal from the angle. Does Jim view this as a tactical necessity, a failure of nerve, or a breakdown in communication at the peak of the fighting?
I think a little bit of the above, and I'm trying to see if I may not find a quote here, because I had a specific quote on this. Oh, I do have a quote. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all the above. So Richard Penn Smith is the commander of the regiment. So as we said earlier, there are a number of companies at the angle. There are a number of companies behind them. Historians will debate. Some think 8 companies in front, 2. Others think 5 and 5. Really doesn't matter, other than the regiment is kind of split up a little bit. Here's the quote I'm looking for. So Smith didn't really talk about any of this in his report, but he claimed in an 1887 interview that he had ordered the lieutenant colonel, who was presumably commanding the left wing, quote, when they had been pushed too hard to have time to reload, to fall back onto the line with the right of the regiment. So that would indicate, it's a little bit by design. When the enemy gets in your face and you're pushed and you don't have time to reload, fall back. That could be the answer.
Yeah. All right, J.J. Jordan, he says or asks, did the remainder of the 3rd Corps see any action during Pickett's charge? If so, how much and who did they fight?
Yes. So the Sickles came back, rushed out of his hospital bed, waving his sword and his severed leg over his head, and pushed him back. So no, not Sickles. So again, the 3rd Corps has been beaten up pretty badly after yesterday. David Birney is in command of the 3rd Corps. They are again back in the woods, kind of in some cases, kind of in that general area where I pointed out where the 20th Maine is. Now, the 3rd Corps accounts talk about taking artillery fire during the cannonade, so they're not out of the thick of it. But there is an account, and it's a little bit of a puzzling one. The 99th Pennsylvania, who fought at Devil's Den. They're the ones with the big diamond monument up at Devil's Den. Well, Major John Moore of the 99th said that he was moved into the area behind the angle during the fighting on July 3rd, and among other things, he basically said that he received a request from the commander of Cushing's battery to help withdraw Cushing's guns off the line. And so he says they were the ones who helped pull Cushing's battery out of there. And if you look, the 99th Pennsylvania has a secondary monument.
I was just going to ask you, and is it like the first one?
Well, it's
like smaller, like the design on top, that weird, like elongated diamond.
Yeah, it's not as prominent as the one at Devil's Den. But that's kind of behind where Arnold's battery is today, up on the upper angle side of the field.
I would believe that because we know Burling's brigade does end up out that way anyway. And in fact, if you put 2 and 2 together, if you look at the Pennsylvania Monument, Humphreys Avenue is what that's called.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen why that's called Humphreys Avenue, but we know
what the part by the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
That one part.
Yeah. So I think that's where Humphreys Division ends up being during the charge,
because they named the bathroom road after
area. So the 99th though is further up. Again,
they would have been on the right of them.
Yep.
That's funny though, because I saw that monument on my walk the other day, and I didn't get to see whose it was.
Are you talking about the monument to the regiment that wasn't at Gettysburg? What's that one that's right there? The 84th Pennsylvania? That's right just north of the Pennsylvania Monument? I think that's what you're thinking of. Is it tall?
Yes.
You're thinking of the 84th, I think.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is the 99th like on what used to be called Meade Avenue?
Ted can switch to me.
No, it's kind of in that general area.
Yeah, that's the 84th New York.
All right, pull up the secondary.
The 99th is much further up.
Yeah,
Yep.
go find this 99th. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, while we're doing that, let's move on to Ben. No. Ben's question is, do we just take it as a given that the topography between Seminary Ridge and Cemetery Ridge is about what it was at the time of the battle?
Look, I tend to think, and I can see Mike has the other monument up on his screen.
All right, go ahead. Just show it real
before
quick.
we
Mike.
answer that.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
not what
that's
I was
it.
thinking of. Okay.
Yeah.
The first
and again,
one.
you can kind of see in the picture there, you can see the copse of
There's
trees.
Cushing, yeah.
You can see
And
the
you can see
69th
Cushing's.
Pennsylvania right here.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see some of that stuff. So do we take it as a good, given the topography is the same?
Yes.
I don't. I mean, I think it's as close as we know, but I do think Camp Colt and all the other stuff, the Great Camp, railroad track, the whole 9 yards. I think all of the development that's out there probably to some extent has flattened it and graded it compared to what it was in 1863. But to what extent, I don't know, and I don't think anybody does know.
Which is kind of weird because it's not really that flat anywhere. Like I was trying to find after we did the 1922 Marine Corps thing.
Yeah.
And we had that aerial shot of the runways.
Oh, I can see. I drive by it. It's so clear to me to see. Next time we go out, I'll show you right
Let's
exactly
do
where
it.
I'm at. It's very flat.
Yeah, okay. Because I was
Right on
just
the other
out
side
there
of
the
that
other
fence.
day.
And in fact, I figured out where that access road is too. It's one fence. Next time we go.
We'll go.
Yep.
We'll bring the video camera and we'll show the audience.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, we know it's undulating ground, but the extent, so what I do tell people with all of that, so yeah, the Marines, all that stuff, I do tell people, if anything, in my view, it's got to be flatter and more graded today than it was in 1863.
Yeah, faux show.
It's a good, again, with all the technology today, it's probably a good topography exercise for somebody to match that up. It just ain't going to be me. I ain't going to do that.
No. You have to write your Little Bighorn book.
I do.
Okay. So, Ken O'Brien says, I've heard that following Wright's repulse on July 2nd, that the Irishmen of the 69th PA went out on the field and picked up all the dropped rifles that they could grab. They loaded them all during the July 3rd attack. The extra rifles, we talked about this. Go on. He says, any hard evidence of this being true or just an old guide's tale?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not just an old guide's tale. It is, there are accounts describing it. I don't have one in my fingerprint tips to say, okay, so-and-so said it. But if you go, like I always tell people with Pickett's Charge, obviously, I think my book with Wayne is great. Richard Rollins' Pickett's Charge eyewitness accounts is a great repository or depository, whatever the word is. Suppository, yeah, that too. But it is a great treasure of first person accounts, and I guarantee there's one or two in there because I do know there are accounts of guys talking about that, multiple guns, picking them up. It's not just an old wives' guide's tale.
Yeah. Chris Mall says, tell me more about Alexander Webb. Pop quiz. Who played Webb in the movie?
Well, that was Brian Pohanka.
Okay.
Right.
But he wants to know more about Webb. He goes, although a very quick scene, the movie kind of depicted him as an a-hole, bloodthirsty for swords and battle flags. Was he an a-hole or was he simply a warrior?
Was he a warrior? I think Webb is a warrior. I mean, particularly, we got to remember a lot of these guys, they're West Point graduates, they're Army guys, whatever. I think most military guys of the era, no offense, but if we were to encounter them today, we would say, what an a-hole, because it's just a different mentality. But I will say...
Men were different then.
Yeah, so what do we know about Webb? Again, he's promoted. He's promoted a couple of days. He's promoted on June 28th, replacing Joshua Patty Owen. Owen had run into some criticism because of lax discipline among the Irishmen and such of the brigade. Webb was a buddy of George Meade's. But I think, Webb stays on the line. When his line breaks on July 3rd, I think he's shot in the head at Spotsylvania Courthouse, suffers a severe wound. I think he's a warrior.
To be fair, I think even in the modern military, when you get up that high in the rank, you almost have to be an a-hole to get there. So I don't think it's any different today. Those guys
we see it today. Gettysburg is a town that is a plethora of retired military officers, and no disrespect intended to anybody, But the colonels, the lieutenant colonels are a lot like CEOs. They all think everybody works for them. You get that mentality when you get to a certain, I don't work for you, sorry.
Yeah.
But, you get that mentality when you get to a certain level. You're just used to telling people what to do. And I don't think most of them turn it off.
David Victor says, was the envelopment of the two flanks, 8th Ohio, he has 108th New York, is that right? Something like that, right? A New York regiment on the Union right and Stannard's 3 Vermont regiments on the left, opportunities that just fell into place, or were they by strategic design? And if by design, by whom?
Yeah, so I think, we did talk about this, but I think there are opportunities that kind of fall into place, and then you make the most of your opportunity. Right. So the opportunity is the enemy's coming by you and they've got an exposed flank, but it's still got to be the guy on the ground who makes the most of it. And I think that's what it is. Now, again, by who? This goes back to one of my premises tonight. Let's give the guys on the front lines some credits for doing this. I do give Sawyer on the right side, the 8th Ohio, I give him credit for doing it. On the left side, again, it's a little squishier. Was it Stannard? Was it VZ, the regimental commander? Was it Hancock? Was it all the above? The three of them might be talking and say, hey, look at that. So depending on who you want to go with.
All right. And then Eric Mercer finishes us off tonight. It's not what I meant. Rounds out the...
And I saw.
Oh, you said go do yours before we do the last.
Yeah, the last super chat we had was from Eric W. And it was just piggybacking off the earlier prisoner talk. He asked where the Union staged those Confederate prisoners from Pickett's charge and approximately how many were there.
Yeah, I want to say, I'm doing this from memory. I want to say I've seen a number as high as like 3,000. So we're going to go with that tonight. It could be give or take. Where do they stage them? My recollection is they kind of stage them, at least initially, they kind of corral them on the other side of the Tawnytown Road, kind of in and around the Honda Avenue area, and maybe even a little bit around where the visitor center is today. But they initially stage, and it's funny because I knew somebody was going to ask this tonight, and then eventually, take them down the Baltimore Pike for processing and such.
Okay. Is that it, Mike? Mm-hmm. All right. And then the last one, Eric Mercer, he says, the 99th PA is my favorite unit in the battle. There was a soldier from the 99th that is buried in my hometown, so naturally I gravitated towards learning more about the regiment's action during the battle. 99th fought in Devil's Den on the 2nd, and then, like the 20th Maine is portrayed in the book/movie, they actually got moved to the loveliest spot on the battlefield. I just wanted to see if Jim had any other info about the 99th action in repulsing Pickett's charge, or if anything else, the actions of other regiments that reinforced the angle during the Rebs' small breakthrough. Yeah, you never really hear about the ones that weren't in the Second Corps and on the main line, but there are some that come up and help.
Yeah. What is it, the 80th New York and the First Corps? Back to the meat of the question. We did talk about the 99th PA. I think my Major Moore account is on page 218 of the Pickett's Charge book. Like, how did I just pull that from memory? Let's see. But as we said earlier, I know that he talks about pulling Cushing's guns off the field. Go back and look to see what else Moore says. He probably has, no pun intended, he probably has more on that. Again, you're right about that. The other thing too is I just want to give a shout out because we didn't talk about him tonight. We talked a little bit about Hayes's guys, but not nearly enough. Sure.
Good job, Jim. Sorry,
he guessed the page.
He got the page.
I wonder how I did that.
So you're talking about 99th helping Cushing, right?
Yeah.
One point of confusion regarding Cushing's so-called second line of guns is that Major John Moore of the 99th Pennsylvania in Sickles' 3rd Corps reported that during the action, quote, Lieutenant of Battery A, 4th U.S. Artillery asked me to draw his pieces to the rear to prevent them from falling into the hands of the enemy. He having only 6 men and 3 horses left that were not disabled. The request was promptly complied with, and the battery removed to the rear under cover of a hill. Moore might simply have been mistaken in his report. Perhaps he misidentified the battery, but if he was correct, then there was no second line for Armistead to fall near as easily claimed.
All right, there you go. And Moore might have more to say, but that's one that stands out with me, his claim about Cushing's battery. And I remember at the time we wrote this, which is now many years ago.
You said to Wayne, let's put it on page 218.
Exactly. No, 216, Jim.
16,
no,
yeah,
218.
yeah. Right.
But I know we had a lot of discussion about that. Where did each one of us sort of stand in terms of that? So,
well, I thoroughly enjoyed this, as I always do. Mikey, what do you want? What do you want?
The contest.
Oh, my God, the
Contest.
contest.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's get the contest over
I
with.
can't wait.
All right.
Get it
So
over
the
with,
winner
that's not exciting.
of the exciting contest,
Yeah, so
what was the name of Jim's cat, Cha?
Cha.
Just something.
And let's be clear. I did not give it away.
No?
I just gave a clue. It was just a clue.
Yeah.
Well, we had 2 people that got it.
Okay.
Could have been
All right.
chocolate.
We had 2 people.
It's true. That's true.
We randomly picked one. Okay. All right. So the 2 that got it were Eric W. and 6 Questions Lens.
All right. Very
All right,
good.
of course.
Now,
Of course.
Eric W. was the one that got randomly selected by the randomizer. However, since Mike Lentz said something nice about me, Mike, you message me and I'll make sure you stop into the seminary and get a free candle.
You can't do that. Support
Yes, I
Eric
can.
W.
Eric W. is still going to get one.
Oh, thank
So
God.
Eric, email me, gettysburgcandles@gmail.com, and then just pick a candle from gettysburgcandles.com,
And that's the
and I
prize
will
that
send it to
they
you.
get candles.
Amazing.
What do you think?
What scented flavor do they get?
They get to pick whichever one they
Oh,
want.
Their
very
choice.
nice.
What's good in the Hessler household?
Jesus Christ! You asked me to remember. I do remember. My wife and daughter do have Mikey B candles. The Peach Orchard was the popular one. Peach Orchard was, and not just because it's Hessler Peach Orchard.
It is
pickles,
the
so.
absolute best. It smells like a real peach. It's so amazing how you do that.
And again, my apologies for giving it away. I just get choked up when I think about Charlie the cat.
So what's so sad? What happened?
So what happened to Charlie the cat? So a beloved cat, and we're indoor cat people. We don't let our cats out.
As are we.
So when my sister got married, and this is something for people to pay attention to. What's that?
How old are you at this point?
We're saying 13. I really don't remember.
Okay, but you're a teenager.
No, let's say like
Middle school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And your sister's obviously older if
Yes.
she's getting married, right?
Yes.
Hopefully.
We're not Mormons.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
So this is, I want to give life advice to people. Never put the wedding announcement in the paper the day of. Always do it afterwards. I don't know, do we have newspapers anymore? So we put the wedding announcement in the paper on Saturday afternoon. Blah, 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 getting married today. Reception tonight at the blah, blah, blah supper club. Somebody read that in the paper and broke in our house.
Oh, no.
And so they broke into while my sister was getting married, our house got robbed.
Oh, my God.
And the premier casualty of that was they left the door open and Charlie the cat got out and got hit by a car and killed.
Oh, we got hit by a car.
So this is a terrible story.
We did not intend that.
Yeah. So you can see now why I get choked up at the Charlie the cat story. It's horrible.
We could have picked anything.
Yeah.
We picked.
You had to pick that. Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys like your candles.
And first of all,
they better be really
and second of all, why the hell are you laughing about this? This is
so
not a funny
terrible.
We're laughing
story.
because we didn't
This
plan
is not
for
a funny story.
It's
End
a
it right
terrible
now.
story.
End it right now.
I would love to, Jim.
Oh my God.
Oh, shit.
I'm gonna go home and drink now, thinking about Charlie.
Did you cry?
Hell yeah.
I
that was sad.
I would cry at this age.
Sad childhood memory.
Just so you know, we're not laughing about Charlie.
No.
We're just laughing at we didn't realize how horrible a story would come from.
We're laughing at ourselves.
Asking you to
That's
pick
okay. That's
the
right.
name of your pet.
I like to think he's been up at the Rainbow Bridge all these years waiting for me. You know,
poor
It's
Charlie.
Terrible. That's terrible. Don't stop laughing.
I'm laughing at how stupid me and Mike are.
I have an itch. I'm laughing because I have an itch.
We thought, what would be a ridiculous question that nobody's going to be able to guess? You know,
Jim's pet.
What's Jim's pet? And we picked. You had a dog too.
We didn't have it. You could have said the dog.
We picked the cat, and then the cat had a tragic
Like Ken
story.
Wyman just said, "Enjoy your blood candles."
Exactly. You monsters.
That's funny.
Right. And in related news, the SPCA will be shutting down Addressing Gettysburg. over complaints of psychological cruelty.
God, yeah, laughing at the misfortune of animals.
Yeah.
Well, that is terrible. Jim, thanks as always. Bob, thank you for the food.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Tad, thank you for a great job. Mikey, thank you for a great job. Mikey's dad, Ed, welcome. Thank
Great
you in the
job,
back
Ed.
there. And Elaine, thanks for coming in. Everybody, just thank you to all of you guys. You're really wonderful people, and we love interacting. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm going to be on a vacation another week. I think I'm going to do 3 weeks. This is 3. But I came in to do this show because I love connecting with the audience, and I didn't want to reschedule with Jim and make it another 2 months or whatever before we do this again. So anyway, that's it, folks.
Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide is produced by Matt Callery, Mikey B. Bariski, and Tad Scase. Hosted by Matt Callery, featuring Mikey B. and Court Nicker. Engineered by Tad Scase. Guests booked by Dave Bussiere of TR Historical. Broadcasting from and recorded at the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios. Thanks for listening.
Instead of small drink down in and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man forget shall go to jail for Gary and glory. Instead of small drink down in and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man forget shall go to jail for Gary and glory.
Copyright 2026, Addressing Gettysburg LLC, all rights reserved.